Sup, my fellas. Don't forget to leave feedback, and enjoy the story. At dusk, a large building marks the setting. A bell rings, echoing through the misty air. A lone warrior enters, signaling an impending confrontation. Meanwhile, a wary newcomer enters the crowded bar. A determined fighter raises a heavy sword to strike. The bartender pours a drink and asks the man at the counter about today's harvest. Then the armored man explains the raid's simple fanged wolf objective. He raises his drink, bracing for upcoming events. A quiet patron sits at the bar, watching the broadcast. A chilling announcement echoes through the spotlighted stage, signaling the start of the deadly competition. The assembly grows tense as the announcement signals the conclusion of the vote. A figure at the podium announces the unanimous passage of the vote, while another stands watchfully nearby. A suited official urgently announces a major decree's approval. He accuses the masked leader of war crimes and massacres. Furthermore, the official lists attacks, ruined trade, and a food crisis. The man seated on the throne-like chair delivers a grim death sentence. A dignitary announces only certain honors will be revoked. Another official declares the hero's special title will remain. The armored soldier is ordered to rejoin the front immediately if needed. A grim figure appears on the glowing screen, delivering a critical message as the group listens intently. At the bar, a man recalls one masked hero once protecting humanity. Two youths demand recognition, refusing to let the masked man take credit. Two men clash fiercely, debating the legacy of the masked savior and the future of humanity after the crisis. The speaker warns of hidden corruption among the celebrated heroes. Later, the youth asks if the other seeks power or is unstable. The troubled man hesitates, uncertain how to answer. An official praises the masked man on stage and lets him leave honorably. However, he is told this leniency exceeds legal bounds given his crimes. The determined fighter narrows his eyes, preparing for a decisive moment. The lone overseer waits in silence, ready to pass judgment beneath the harsh light. The young man steels himself, staring straight ahead. The confused crowd shifts uneasily, reacting to the sudden disturbance. Now, he sits on the throne, shocked to still be alive. A lone survivor recalls being betrayed during a previous judgment. The shaken youth wonders if he is reliving moments before his death. The stunned onlooker recalls as an unexpected phenomenon suddenly appears before him. The protagonist confronts a mission screen offering two crucial options and rewards. A new crisis emerges, yet the figure resolves to safeguard humanity from the shadows despite widespread misunderstanding. A darker path appears, questioning saving humanity and condemning secretive actors. Finally, a warning appears: transfer to F level will occur in 20 minutes. A stunned man realizes he has come back alive. At the empty intersection, he faces another fate-changing choice. The resolute youth steels himself and commits to his decision. The resolute figure uncovers a crucial secret from the illuminated artifact. A suited man questions the masked hero's silence and praises him. A stern accuser condemns the leader's apathy for harming many. A shadowy critic brands the former hero obsolete and blocking progress. The accuser declares the intention to exile the defendant completely as the trial reaches its climax. The stoic figure begins to transform into stone under the eerie glow. The speaker challenges the others at the table with a harsh accusation, escalating the confrontation. The resolute figure interrupts the proceedings, boldly voicing an objection from his throne-like seat. A startled performer steps on stage and immediately draws the crowd's focus. The confident figure expresses firm approval. At the bar, a man accuses an elder of hoarding power. An enraged accuser slams the table and denounces the villain's crimes. On a giant screen, a youth announces he will quit being a special hero. A group stands frozen in shock as an unexpected event unfolds. A determined figure slams the table, jolting everyone present. The blond man in the suit slams his hands on the desk and demands an explanation, visibly shocked. The young man steps forward into the spotlight and formally relinquishes his status as a special hero before the gathered crowd. The exhausted hero stands under the light and rejects his role. A suited official slams the desk, accusing the masked one of defiance. Meanwhile, the cloaked fighter stands alone and rejects accusations of dissatisfaction. A young man walks down the stairs, feeling unexpectedly calm. The blonde figure angrily confronts the other, challenging the expectation of quietly supporting humanity. The suited man leans forward, asking if his rival will fight the entire Commonwealth alone. A desperate youth shouts after the masked one, ordering him to stop. The masked figure sharply demands more information about the situation. A lone figure stands under the spotlight as the man at the podium announces the end of his special hero status. The furious challenger loudly demands that the other's power be surrendered. One youth mocks his friend while doubting the council president's true intentions. Two onlookers react in shock, questioning the council's confusing decision. Two figures sit side by side, discussing the rank of the hero mask. At the bar, an armored patron hears that hero mask ranks far above all others. The tired speaker raises his glass and predicts a bleak future. An enraged official slams the desk, condemning the masked one's betrayal of national sacrifices. A stern leader interrupts, setting a harsh condition for anyone who wants to leave. A furious official slams the podium, demanding total surrender of the masked hero's power. The lone hero hesitates, torn over surrendering everything he has earned. Finally, the tense man struggles to stay composed under crushing pressure. Two suited workers tense up at shocking news. Nearby, several people huddle under lights, bracing for something unknown. The youth clenches his jaw and reluctantly accepts the challenge, tension radiating from him. A resolute man raises a glowing orb, surrendering. The resolute fighter unleashes a devastating surge of blue energy, engulfing the area in swirling light. A suited man slams the desk at shocking news. A determined fighter attacks the vortex with unleashed energy. The young man summons a swirling blue energy vortex overhead, unleashing a surge of power. Several students collapse over desks, crushed by overwhelming pressure. A terrified person crawls, reaching out and begging for help. A suited leader slams down, releasing a shockwave. Elsewhere, a veteran hero slams the ground, erupting in crimson energy. Under crushing force, a defiant fighter reaches toward the blue vortex. The defiant one gathers energy, readying a powerful counterattack. Then, a colossal blue surge slams the defender, triggering an explosion. A devastating blue wave tears through the ruins, obliterating everything. A colossal blue energy beam strikes the skyscraper, shattering the rooftop in a blinding explosion. A startled onlooker watches light burst from the shattered skyscraper. As chaos erupts, one figure urgently warns the startled crowd to seek shelter from the descending threat. Blue lightning crashes onto a skyscraper, illuminating the stormy city. Blue lightning crashes down, obliterating the ground. Students collapse over desks as ceiling debris falls. Meanwhile, a lone fighter blasts energy with a raised glowing sword. He kneels on shattered ground, drained of power. A suited man smirks, declaring the other now just an ordinary human. The arrogant figure dismisses any threat, showing no fear toward the ordinary opponent. The lone fighter gathers energy again, preparing to attack. The lone survivor advances through the debris toward the imposing door, tension thick in the air. The blond man urgently urges his group forward, his voice sharp with intensity. A calm man tightens a mask over his eyes, preparing himself. Suddenly, a masked person tears off the disguise, revealing their face. A suited attacker issues a deadly warning with a cold glare. The lone figure passes through the doorway, descending toward an eerie red glow. A staff floats in midair, crackling with intense red energy. The blond man in the suit recoils in disbelief as someone suddenly vanishes before his eyes. A sudden system prompt initiates teleportation to a high-level secret realm. The destination is revealed as the mother spider hatching nest. A misty, shadowed chamber appears, suggesting more danger ahead. A glowing portal forms within the cavern's darkness. Finally, a commanding figure stomps onto the lit floor, seizing everyone's attention. A determined squad steps through a glowing portal, entering a level 3 secret realm filled with lower-level demons and a manageable final boss. One teammate smirks, teasing others about fearing human-sized spiders. Two figures stand side by side in the darkness, bolstering each other's resolve before facing the unknown. They get ready to enter the forest and earn money hunting monsters. They discuss the forest trial, and one suggests just watching the broadcast online. They note the secret realm opened because stronger professionals gathered for the trial. The assertive figure signals for everyone to move ahead through the swirling mist. The leader rallies the group, and the team charges into the cave to begin their raid on the secret realm. A swirling portal of blue energy erupts within the ancient stone archway. The party tenses as they sense an unknown presence approaching through the cavern. A determined intruder stomps the ground, releasing a shockwave of force. The young woman recoils in shock as a burst of energy erupts nearby. The resolute figure emerges from the swirling blue portal, stepping into the unknown. Two bystanders mock a newcomer for entering gearless and unarmed. The young man steadies himself, focusing as he prepares for the coming fight. Alone in a bright chamber, he recalls his earlier lower-rank secret realm. He remembers his awakening and the beginning of his professional career. Now empowered, he enters the realm to defeat monsters and their demon god before time expires. He faces his system screen, reduced to level 1 with his powers removed. The cautious figure studies a strange signboard that radiates an unsettling presence. Alone, a wanderer doubts the hero's path can save anyone. In a dark forest, he awaits a challenge beside a glowing message. A wary young man faces a challenge from an older figure in the shadowy cave near the secret realm gate. The challenger taunts him, asking where his weapon is. Then he raises his fist, revealing it as his weapon. A burly fighter grabs his shoulder, mocking him for using only his body. An armored man questions the newcomer's rank, fearing competition for rewards. The young man calmly declares his level, determination flickering in his eyes as he faces the sky. Soon, an armored scout announces the threat level as everyone braces. An elder confronts him in disbelief, demanding an explanation. A brash fighter mocks him for arriving completely unprepared. A gloved hand grabs his wrist, stopping his sudden move. Next, the newcomer steps forward, declaring he will defeat the monster. A muscular hunter scoffs, warning the realm will definitely kill him. The newcomer calmly assures the tense group that he poses no threat as suspicion lingers in the jagged cavern. However, an armored ally warns him of danger as he walks away. The smug man coldly refuses to offer any help. The group strides into the dark cave while their cautious leader pauses at the entrance. A nervous scout scans the shadows behind the retreating group. Jagged rocks and fiery light reveal how dangerous the cavern is. A determined figure unleashes a devastating explosion spell, sending a fiery blast across the battlefield. There, the monster at the cave entrance is engulfed by an explosion. An ally warns the leader and fires a glowing arrow backward. The swordsman intercepts the monster's searing laser with a powerful block. The energetic man flashes a smirk and expresses his gratitude with confidence. The swordsman charges forward and unleashes a powerful strike against the monstrous foes. Meanwhile, he faces the glowing cracked wall as energy builds. The worried observer notes the captain's hostility while addressing a companion in the dim cave. The supportive figure reassures the newcomer about the captain's intentions and warns that mistakes are common for first-timers in the secret realm. A stern woman warns her partner that carelessness can be fatal. Later, a veteran notes experience has made newer professionals more cautious and skilled. A perceptive girl questions a boy's refined speech, suspecting an unusual background. Two armored allies observe that improved training and teamwork reduced rookie casualties. A young woman suddenly remembers she has not introduced herself. Afterward, the healer steps up and briefly states her healing skills. Two teammates clasp hands, affirming they will face upcoming dangers together. A young man introduces himself as level 1, still undecided on a profession. An attentive girl asks why he has not chosen a path. Alone, he recalls shaping every profession and quietly contemplates his next choice. An advisor suggests becoming a spellcaster, since melee fighters need greater physical strength. The observer pauses, uncertain what to do next. The apologetic figure raises a hand, breaking the silence with a worried admission, while the other listens quietly by the rocky cavern wall. A massive sword crashes down in a devastating attack. The alert figure abruptly seizes the startled companion's arm, halting their movement. A surge of purple energy tears through the barrier, reducing it to rubble. The protector throws himself in front of his companion, shielding her as a destructive energy blast smashes into the wall behind them. An archer spots an approaching shadow spider and urgently warns the others. Suddenly, a spiked beast crashes down as the pair brace for impact. A determined fighter extends a hand as mysterious power erupts around him. Then, the resolute warrior seizes the jagged dark weapon. A defender blocks a monstrous arm, releasing dark energy and debris. The protector blocks the monster's attack with a club, keeping the companion back. The fighter slams down a massive electrified weapon in a brutal strike. The determined fighter slams a bloodied weapon through the monster's head as energy crackles around them. The monster roars loudly, causing the surroundings to shake. Meanwhile, the pair stand firm before the towering spike-covered beast. The group stares in shock at the overwhelming martial display. However, one armored skeptic insists such a feat is impossible. The young man crushes the spider's vulnerable joint and drives it into the creature's eye in one swift motion. Afterward, the pair stand over the corpse, recovering from the fight. The calm figure reassures his companion that the danger passed. Meanwhile, the girl clings to his arm, complaining while he stays calm. The girl hides her face, apologizing, while her quiet companion stands motionless. Nearby, he reads a system notice. Killing the shadow spider always gives experience. He recalls using his unique leveling ability to quickly rank up by hunting monsters. The resolute figure assesses his accelerated growth, fueled by newfound abilities and battle experience from a previous life. An armed veteran faces the young challenger in the cavern, noting his unexpected courage. The burly survivor expresses gratitude to the quiet rescuer, and assures him of a promised reward once the mission ends. The leader tells his wary companion they must rely on each other here. Suddenly, the armored man pauses, realizing the younger fighter is acting deliberately. A devastating strike erupts, blasting the area with violent energy. The warrior follows up by releasing a huge glowing slash at his foe. Elsewhere, a bound woman is guarded by monsters and armed watchers, preventing escape. An armed explorer studies the broken path ahead, bracing for the looming boss fight. The leader outlines the strategy as the group steels themselves for the decisive battle in the cave. The leader instructs the ally to use fire against the spider's silk as they prepare to confront the enemy in the web-filled cave. As the two figures move through the tense forest, one confidently predicts the guilty verdict in the high-profile trial, while the other listens intently. Two onlookers trade rumors about who might be hiding behind the mask. A shaken woman admits she regrets backing the man who massacred the city. The anxious girl protests defensively as the newcomer approaches the tense group. An onlooker explains a demon plague is turning citizens into monsters. A hostile man corners a girl, accusing her of causing the outbreak. An armored warrior abruptly ends the argument, forcing the woman into silence. Meanwhile, a mocking voice taunts the party, raising tension inside the cave. The group pushes forward across the rocky ground, preparing to confront the boss. Soon, they reach a web-filled cavern that clearly hides new dangers. A cautious scout steps onto the web-covered floor, testing it with careful steps. The team advances carefully through the web-choked forest, expecting the boss to appear. The pair discusses the potential loot from the boss's treasure chest and the surprising value of its corpse. Suddenly, a massive claw rips out, announcing the monster's arrival. An armored ally warns the party as everyone braces for the lurking threat. The lone figure braces as a gigantic beast charges forward, ready for a fierce showdown. The armored leader rushes ahead to draw aggro while allies concentrate on attacking. The young warrior prepares as the giant armored spider lunges at him. The swordsman lunges forward, driving his blade into the monstrous, lava-veined beast. Another fighter unleashes rapid green energy blasts against the hulking beast. As he advances, the analyst notes these secret realm creatures are surprisingly unintelligent. The young fighter drives his fist forward, bracing for the decisive clash. With one crushing punch, the fighter completely shatters the stone-skinned enemy. The protective figure hurls a torrent of fire as her ally drives a slicing wave of energy through the shadowy forest. An armored beast staggers under heavy fire. The sorceress blasts the advancing beast with green energy. A monstrous figure bursts forth, unleashing a devastating wave of fiery destruction. The team stands over the slain beast, victory secured. Afterward, the leader explains how the final rewards are divided. The cautious observer notices a discrepancy between the system's indication and the reported level of the secret realm. A subordinate reports to the leader that the secret chest is missing. Nearby, a scout scans the forest, sensing something ahead. A cautious explorer steps onto the cracked stone, entering deeper in. Then, a headless student figure emerges from the swirling darkness. The anxious woman freezes as she suddenly notices something alarming. The wary figure stares at the bizarre astronaut helmet, uncertain of what danger it might hold. The party realizes the hidden chest has only just appeared in the cave. Soon, a menacing woman appears and declares herself the secret realm's boss. The swordsman assesses her calmly, judging her weaker than a past enemy. A masked fighter steps forward, further raising the room's tension. Suddenly, a helmeted combatant is hurled hard against the rocky wall. The helmeted attacker charges forward, energy flaring as they prepare to strike. A determined fighter braces as a shadowy spearman charges in. The attacker surges forward, unleashing a devastating strike with unwavering focus. An onlooker shouts a warning, condemning the reckless attack. In an instant, a shadowy figure is impaled through the chest. The attacker slams a staff into the opponent's back, unleashing a surge of force. The group cautiously enters the cracked cavern, watching for threats. The youth stabs the helmeted body, hoping the danger is over. Next, the aggressor lunges, thrusting a cursed spear at a defenseless target. The victim staggers as a gaping, unnatural wound tears through her abdomen, signaling a mortal blow. She is hurled backward as a crushing blast hits her midsection. Suddenly, glowing restraints bind the youth's arms, halting his movement. One captive reaches out as white tendrils tether them to the floating body. Another prisoner strains against glowing restraints in agony. The anxious young man shouts for his companion, while the startled girl turns toward him in the dim cave. The armored leader orders the mage to burn through the spider silk barrier. In response, a mage releases magic, casting a radiant seal forward. A lone figure unleashes a surge of energy as flames erupt around her. Meanwhile, the young man runs through burning woods as an armored ally demands rescue. The young man staggers back as a massive burst of fiery energy erupts before him. The spellcaster hurls a swirling inferno toward the unseen foe. 3 determined fighters advance through the flames toward the danger's core. Finally, the youth freezes amid the blaze, stunned by the destruction. An armored student emerges from flames, radiating dangerous power. The group braces themselves as an unfamiliar and formidable enemy emerges from the fractured cavern wall. Then, a masked captor burns his prisoner while restraints hold him. A swift limb swings, marking the start of the assault. The startled youth jerks back as a deadly strike narrowly misses his head. A monstrous limb spears his torso, leaving him collapsing. Meanwhile, a lone fighter faces the wounded monster in mist. An enraged archer draws his bow to kill someone. A concerned figure grabs the other's arm, stopping any sudden move. A comrade restrains him, warning he'll die like the lancer. The armed figures argue heatedly about the impossibility of winning with a reckless attack. 2 armored scouts confirm the portal opens in 3 hours. Their leader orders everyone to fight while retreating toward the portal exit. Suddenly, an archer shouts a warning as a monster charges. A girl in a school uniform staggers as a shadowy force pierces through her stomach. The monster erupts, lashing energy tendrils in every direction. An armored defender struggles to block a powerful energy blast. The squad leader slams his weapon down, unleashing crackling shockwaves. An armored fighter is suddenly impaled through the abdomen. A surge of mystical energy blasts outward, sending 3 sharp projectiles flying. A cornered youth struggles as magical threads tighten around him. He cries out as both captives are pinned by restraints. A sinister puppet suspends its captive in midair, binding him tightly with glowing, magical strings. Suddenly, white tendrils burst out and impale the stunned captive. Armored prey is impaled by electrified spikes and left helpless. The trapped fighter struggles against tightening tendrils, refusing to submit. A violent surge of dark energy explodes across the chaos-filled scene. 2 onlookers freeze in the shadows, watching the horror unfold. The monster drives its claws through the restrained astronaut. One figure collapses face down amid a burst of blood as the others loom threateningly nearby. A young warrior struggles to control a colossal flaming weapon. An attacker blasts energy at a defender crouched against the wall. A fighter punches through the energy barrier, shattering it. The stunned man recoils, unable to accept what just happened. The swordsman uses full strength, but the monster is unharmed. Meanwhile, an armored fighter braces as white tendrils rush toward him. The victor impales the opponent with spiked tendrils, lifting her as battle ends. A captive strains against restraints, reaching out and demanding the sword. Desperate, he lunges forward, insisting the sword is their only hope. The young man strains helplessly against glowing restraints pinning him down. A wounded fighter is bound by crackling energy and kneels. Another fighter swings a huge sword, deflecting incoming energy blasts. The swordsman charges forward, determined to land a strike. Meanwhile, an attacker stomps down, cracking the ground beneath. The swordsman dives downward, preparing a heavy finishing blow. A hooded foe unleashes energy slashes, cutting down both fighters. The terrified youth screams as a surge of dark energy engulfs him. A spider-limbed monster rises over a fallen victim, fully transformed. A survivor drags a wounded ally through a cavern, abandoning another body. An energized woman lunges with green power as her opponent braces. A shaking victim recoils while encroaching darkness freezes him in fear. Elsewhere, a panicked runner flees through the forest from pursuit. The anxious spellcaster unleashes a burst of green energy while the resolute youth stands his ground amid the turmoil. The wary survivor explains that the monster let its prey escape to heighten its fear and savor the hunt. The calm youth says these monsters feed especially on strong negative emotions. A cautious listener asks what this disturbing revelation truly means. The observer explains they gain power and warped bodies from marks of outer gods. The survivor recalls countless victories over outer gods and bitter trials from his first secret realm. A once human body twists into a multi-limbed monster, darkening the chamber. Finally, a lone caster unleashes dark energy that engulfs everything. A young woman counters encroaching shadows with radiant power. The mage forms a glowing barrier, pushing back the spreading poison. Anxious, she becomes trapped inside swirling purple energy. Suddenly, the girl is overwhelmed by surging purple power. The startled observer realizes the suffocating force is spiritual pressure, not poison. At the center of swirling purple and black energy, the woman unleashes a wave of sinister power. Shrouded in darkness and swirling purple mist, the figure recoils in alarm at the sudden manifestation of a sinister force. A defiant figure taunts the unseen adversary, challenging their expectations amid swirling purple energy. A weakened young man insists his spirit remains strong amid the chaos. Then the challenger confronts the foe, noting their weakened spiritual power. A lone warrior advances steadily through a swirling field of dark energy. The lone figure unleashes a surge of dark power as a new ability awakens within. A sinister being erupts outward, releasing an overwhelming surge of power. Afterward, a frustrated combatant surveys fallen foes, preparing for a true battle. The transformed entity radiates crushing power, cowing a nearby onlooker. The monstrous figure, wreathed in darkness, proclaims its dominance. The woman is impaled by monstrous tendrils as dark energy erupts. An armored monster bursts out, radiating dark power from blazing red eyes. Another monster emerges from shadows, its red eyes glowing menacingly. Finally, a devastating energy surge erupts, hurling debris everywhere. The girl's body contorts as she unleashes a surge of monstrous power, dark energy crackling around her. Suddenly, a towering armored figure appears, radiating menace. A woman is impaled through the abdomen by a sudden attack. The armored figure is engulfed as dark power awakens. The transformed warrior releases dark power while wielding a corrupted blade. A stunned student is struck hard, blood spraying from the chest. The armored fighter delivers a powerful kick charged with red energy. A robotic fighter bursts through a shattered barrier in a surge. Then, destructive energy crashes down, shattering the ground. An enemy mocks the defender as glowing projectiles streak through the forest. Meanwhile, a demon taunts a weaker opponent, dismissing any threat. The armored figure issues a lethal warning, dark energy crackling around it. The transformed attacker dives downward to launch a devastating strike. A wounded woman staggers back as dark energy slashes break her defenses. The monstrous enemy blasts dark energy, flinging the young woman backward. A helmeted warrior lunges forward with a brutal, bloody slash. Then, the armored leader declares the final battle has begun. An armored woman is impaled through the abdomen by a shadowy claw. The empowered armored fighter charges while a shadowy adversary waits ahead. Finally, a masked fighter lunges and slams swirling energy into the ground. An attacker lunges forward, beginning a sudden assault. A wounded woman collapses, too exhausted to stand. An armored fighter is pinned to a wall by shadows. Meanwhile, a towering foe threatens a trembling opponent. A dark, monstrous claw slams down toward the cowering victim. An enraged warrior shatters the enemy with overwhelming force. A triumphant notification signals the successful completion of the raid and the granting of a new reward. Another message declares all survivors will soon be transported out. Elsewhere, a lone walker moves through the crowded plaza. A shaken girl walks slowly, still processing the teleportation. Doctors rush the wounded leader inside as two siblings depart. The worried girl fears her missing ally may be dead. A bystander suddenly looks aside, reacting to something unusual. A startled figure spots a familiar presence on the city street and urgently calls out. Towering buildings rise beneath the clear sky as sunlight floods the modern city. The young man sits outside, quietly planning his next steps after being transported to a new city. He then discovers even a tiny apartment's rent is unaffordable. He stands alone, reflecting on how his burdens have shifted. Ahead, a brooding youth ignores a cheerful companion calling behind. Suddenly, the cautious man glances sideways, sensing something strange. A curious youth steps forward, recognizing the withdrawn healer from their past secret realm encounter. The irritated young woman reacts with visible annoyance upon hearing about the healer. The girl firmly states her name, emphasizing it with raised fingers. The previously worried person relaxes, relieved to confirm the other is unharmed. The young man explains he is just seeking lodging and knows no one in the city. The perceptive girl pauses, absorbing the new information with a thoughtful gesture. The rebuilt city is a modern settlement established only 40 years after the disaster. As they walk, one explains how development turned the old city center into an urban village. A determined fighter steps forward, signaling that it is time to act. The young woman gestures toward the house as her companion listens attentively. The hostess reassures the hesitant newcomer that a private room has already been prepared. One figure points out a medal on the wall, explaining its significance to the other as they pause in the hallway. The boy silently recalls his father's distinguished war record and high rank with deep respect. The girl claims her father once fought and camped with the masked hero, astonishing the boy. The skeptical girl wonders if this childhood tale about her father is actually true. Later, the woman doubts the rumor, saying the masked leader would never casually dine with subordinates. Outside, someone asks the gloomy youth about his missing father, and he quietly says he's gone. A mourner touches the plaque, recalling how war ruined the soldier's health and killed him afterward. The youth adds that his mother died giving birth to his younger sister. Finally, the boy falls silent, hesitating as troubling thoughts occupy him. The energetic girl reassures her companion with a confident smile, showing she's moved on from the past. She gestures to the doorway, urging him inside. One figure leads another, giving a quilt but nothing else. The host offers an old left-wing room to stay. The newcomer stands outside, reflecting on how much better this place is compared to the front lines and determining to repay the rent after earning more money. The wheelchair rolls forward across the floor, breaking the silence. Its occupant looks up, startled by the arrival. Meanwhile, the mediator introduces the newcomer, explaining his temporary stay. A skeptic challenges the host for inviting strangers home. The girl in the wheelchair stares into the shadowy doorway while two others watch her from behind. Afterward, the mediator apologizes, explaining the child's agitation to him. The serious one says today is Judgment Day, explaining her behavior. The young man pauses alone, surprised as he contemplates the unexpected attention from his growing audience. The young woman in the wheelchair concentrates on the computer screen, deeply absorbed in her research. Online comments condemn the masked figure as selfish and cowardly. An angry supporter slams the desk, blaming humanity instead. Furious, she pounds the keyboard, venting through frantic typing. A gentle voice calls from behind the closed door, announcing that it is time to eat. However, the girl refuses to eat, ignoring the guests. She spins her chair, complaining about the unexpected visitor. The reserved girl stands by the open door and reluctantly agrees. Two people sit across from each other at a modestly set table, preparing to share a quiet meal. The young man reassures his companion while praising the food. While calmly eating, the survivor recalls enduring harsh meals of unseasoned monster meat at the border. The young man eats in silence, steeling his resolve to endure any hardship for the sake of humanity. Across the table, one inquisitive figure questions the other about the recent disappearance, demanding an opinion on the troubling incident. Meanwhile, on TV, two hosts debate a theory about trusting Parliament. A polished critic claims the masked one's disappearance was a planned escape, not resignation. The suited commentator challenges the theory during the serious studio debate. A young analyst warns the hero's disappearance might endanger humanity's survival. However, the suited speaker rejects dependence on one hero, praising collective leadership instead. The stern presenter dismisses the rumor as baseless and misleading. He delivers a cold remark, leaving his dining partner visibly shaken. The woman pauses to ask if the masked one ran away from guilt. The hungry youth quickly refills his bowl for the fourth time as the surprised onlooker questions his rapid eating. A wary youth quietly voices his suspicions about the masked figure. Still, the determined girl insists the masked fighter had a good reason. One diner confronts him about his indifference, but he remains unmoved. The uneasy viewer warns another woman will explode if she watches this broadcast. Suddenly, a furious intruder pounds on the door, startling the two diners. She reveals the visitor is from Kaijiang Investment, shocking the man. A furious attacker blasts the gate, threatening to burn down the house. A startled figure bursts through the doorway, rushing outside in alarm. The cautious figure in the pink sweater pushes open the double doors, stepping into the blinding light. Outside, the woman steps out and is immediately blocked by a group of men. The determined woman stands her ground in the doorway, firmly refusing to sell the house to the two men. The floral shirt man mocks her about her team's collapse and injured captain. The startled woman listens as the sharply dressed man confidently explains that their company's government connections make it easy to access information. The aggressor leans close, cruelly taunting the now defenseless victim. A young woman pauses in the doorway, clutching her chest in fear. The man in the floral shirt raises his hand, issuing a 5-day ultimatum to the sisters while his henchmen stand by. A suited negotiator offers big money in exchange for the land's development rights. Still, the young woman demands why the house price crashed and again refuses to sell. The sly negotiator confidently explains the drastic price change in the real estate deal. A smug man blocks the exit, exploiting her money troubles to pressure her. A surprised bystander turns as a silent person approaches from behind. Then, an older man blocks the doorway and confronts her about a rumored relationship. The newcomer extends a hand in greeting, signaling the start of an introduction. A dignified man in a suit offers his hand and states his name. A young man holds out his hand, inviting the nervous girl to trust him. Two figures tentatively touch hands, beginning a connection. The quick-thinking ally urgently warns the group about the enemy's dangerous mental attacks. The two figures seal their alliance with a determined handshake. The villain grabs his target, claiming victory. The cautious newcomer and the sinister figure seal their uneasy alliance with a tense handshake as ominous energy crackles around them. A determined youth gathers power, steeling himself. An intense surge of swirling pink energy bursts from the young man's eye as he unleashes his hidden power. The malicious intruder lunges into his opponent's mental realm, prepared to shatter the defender's mind. The charging attacker boasts he'll knock his foe out. Meanwhile, a watcher in the void realizes the arrival failed. The protagonist abruptly notices something frightening nearby. The stunned figure stands at the edge of an eerie, boundless expanse, realizing he has entered someone else's mental world. The observer staggers back, shocked by such mental power. The desperate figure sprints across the water, driven by the urgent need to escape. He jerks back, alarmed by an unexpected jolt. The lone fighter braces in midair against an oncoming avalanche. He sinks beneath the raging water. An enemy is flung back, completely overwhelmed by force. The overwhelmed figure struggles desperately as a crushing psychic assault threatens to drown his consciousness. The young man withstands crushing mental pressure with difficulty. A lone challenger confronts a towering, fiery-eyed opponent. The trembling onlooker recoils in terror, unable to hide his horror at the monstrous sight before him. Another man frantically shakes his unconscious ally, trying to wake him. A wary observer suspects the enemy switched from intimidation to blackmail. Then a suited man accuses the calm one of hurting Tujing. One figure grabs the other's arm, stopping any movement. The enraged man lunges, but his companion restrains him. Soon the onlookers realize their foe is a higher-ranked spiritual professional. The dominant fighter towers over his beaten rival and issues a warning. The taller man pins his opponent and repeats a sharper warning. Then a shocked woman demands if the calm man caused the fainting. The calm man replies the victim insisted on entering his mental world. The young woman explains harassment began after her father died and developers targeted their house. She adds intruders repeatedly broke in and threatened her sibling when she was away. Later the speaker advanced rank, gained a leader's protection, and forced enemies to retreat temporarily. The anxious woman clutches her chest, troubled that new enemies have appeared so soon after the captain's accident. The speaker explains the policy of preferential treatment for military families under a clear sky. Then an assertive man challenges assumptions about special treatment, stunning his companion. The insightful observer notes that those with the power to bring wealth receive more favorable treatment, while three figures support each other and pass through a large white gate in the background. The wary young man narrows his eyes under the bright sky, silently questioning what he just heard. Someone washes dishes, telling the guest helping is unnecessary. However, the guest insists on helping to repay the host's kindness. A woman folds laundry and thanks him for repelling intruders. In the kitchen, she asks his plans about joining new raid teams. Privately, she worries about the team and may seek another if leadership fails. The wary teammate warns that alliances in the secret realm often end in betrayal. The skeptic questions who truly enforces the prohibition against killing within the secret realm. The helpful woman offers to recommend a trustworthy group if she finds one while washing dishes in the kitchen. The young man sits in silence, coming to terms with the consequences of choosing a monstrous path. The outcast contemplates his unending solitude, certain no ally will ever stand beside a monster. The startled young man freezes in the kitchen as a shadowy figure slips past him. A quest notification appears, assigning a solo mission to clear a secret realm within 12 hours. A surge of blue energy crashes down into the vast, deserted hall. A colossal blue portal surges to life in the heart of the shadowy hall. The young man steps forward, his body enveloped in a surge of swirling blue energy. The young man prepares to enter the secret realm through the system's portal, bypassing all official procedures. The cautious intruder surveys the Gothic hall, noting the secret realm's distinctly European medieval style as he faces a looming statue. The lone figure moves cautiously through the shadowy hall, abruptly stopping as something unexpected catches his attention. The lone figure cautiously faces the pair of ominous statues in the shadowy hall. The vigilant figure spots a gargoyle guarding the entrance, immediately sensing potential danger. A giant stone foot slams down, cracking the ground. The impact shatters the mountainside, hurling debris everywhere. A stone-skinned beast charges forward to attack. A menacing gargoyle bursts to life from its perch, revealing its deadly fangs and preparing to attack. The strategist assesses the gargoyle, recognizing its resilient body and resistance to both physical and magical attacks. He realizes other parties would suffer heavy losses against these monsters. The lone fighter braces as two red-eyed monsters dive to attack. A monstrous figure lunges forward, its glowing red eyes and sharp fangs threatening imminent attack. The wounded beast charges, roaring as blood pours out. A young man contorts as dark energy begins transforming him. He unleashes dark energy, intimidating the monsters around him. A menacing figure in demonic armor emerges from the ruins, radiating overwhelming power. A bloody claw slams into the ground, scattering ice shards. A lone figure enters the ruined cathedral and surveys the aftermath. Soon, bat-winged monsters materialize from the mist-filled hall. The lone intruder is surrounded by shadowy guardians with glowing red eyes. Then, the armored monster raises a claw and issues a challenge. Stone-skinned creatures leap from shattered pillars in a sudden assault. The lone figure braces himself as bat-like monsters encircle, preparing to attack from all sides. Finally, the kneeling figure releases dark power throughout the cathedral. Suddenly, winged demons pour from the portal into the area. The attacker lands a heavy blow, overpowering the monster. The monster strikes back, blasting the huge winged enemy. Meanwhile, an armored fighter swings a glowing blade downward. A determined warrior impales the demon with a devastating strike. Sunlight reveals the ruined hall after the recent battle. Then an armored figure erupts with power, becoming demonic. A monstrous figure lunges forward, slashing viciously with its claws. The menacing figure fixes a cold, intimidating glare on the silent opponent, exuding overwhelming hostility. A shadowy figure with blazing eyes subdues the monstrous beast as energy crackles around them. Again, the armored being releases dark power and transforms. A powerful impact smashes into the ground, scattering debris. The transformed attacker unleashes an attack, hurling debris outward. Afterward, a horned figure emerges from smoke, radiating power. A towering gargoyle leader advances, wielding a massive spear. A horned entity steps forward, revealing its hidden monstrous form. The lone figure undergoes a fierce transformation, power radiating as blue flames engulf his body. Both combatants hurl themselves forward in a furious head-on clash beneath the soaring arches. Blinding light pours through the massive cathedral doors as mist and debris swirl ominously inside. The intruder bursts in, shattering the door into splinters. 4 fighters brace for battle, gripping weapons tightly. The group advances through the ruined landscape. However, one questions whether they are truly first explorers. The analyst states the Bureau sealed the realm beforehand. One inspects cracked ground, reporting traces of immense power. The analyst points to the fractured ground, prompting the leader to examine the direct break lines closely. Meanwhile, an investigator studies the gargoyle, suspecting unnatural destruction. The observer recoils, realizing the gargoyle was violently torn apart. An onlooker stares, stunned by such overwhelming strength. Soon, a subordinate urgently warns his superior of a looming threat. An alert member points to the shattered stained glass above. A defeated warrior hangs impaled against a wall by a colossal spear. Elsewhere, a sleek government facility appears as a news setting. A worker slams documents onto a desk, frustrated by stalled progress. A frustrated official announces that at least 7 teams found all the monsters in the secret realm already eliminated upon arrival. Officials discuss an unregistered breach, exposing serious oversight failures. Ultimately, a suited planner notes, someone must eventually clear every realm. An enraged leader slams the table, warning collaborators endanger the Federation and humanity. Another authority warns an unregistered fighter could ambush an expedition team. Back then, the elder says humans were deadlier than any realm monster. The man at the desk delivers a forceful condemnation of needless infighting. Then he redirects them by presenting a level 4 gargoyle's secret realm file. An investigator concludes infiltrations began there, and the intruder is roughly peak level 4 or 5. The group decides the consistent wounds prove a single attacker caused all incidents. The stern man points out that after clearing out so many secret realms alone, it would be impossible for the raider to make use of all the spoils. He orders surveillance of day city markets for sales matching 7 secret realms' loot. Meanwhile, a crowded trading market of container stalls bustles with activity. A burly figure eagerly slides a thick stack of cash across the counter to seal the deal. One figure hands over a thick stack of cash to the other, sealing their agreement. A young seller counts his money, wondering if he undersold secret realm loot. The resolute figure accepts a new mission from the glowing system panel, confident that completing it will make him stronger. A determined renter clutches cash, believing it's enough to secure housing. A displeased customer frowns at an offer he finds unacceptable. Nearby, a vendor showcases an old lethal sword, attracting a curious buyer. An appraiser dismisses the worn blade as flawed junk fit only for scrap. The young woman holds the sword, upset it was judged worthless. The woman proposes a lower price for the ornate knife, while the merchant considers her offer. Desperate over a loved one's treatment, she grips her sword and forces herself to sell. An expert examines the blade and identifies its metal as forged ember iron. Finally, the scheming buyer plans to extract ember iron and resell it. The resolute young woman weighs her options as the man pushes her to make a quick decision about selling the sword. An armed man blocks the other's path with his sheathed sword. The cautious onlooker questions the swordsman's intentions, but the latter insists they postpone the discussion to focus on the impending trade. The young man steels himself, focusing intently on what comes next. Meanwhile, someone grips the ornate blade as its murderous history is revealed. The assertive man demands the blade, while the cautious vendor offers to sell it. A stern patron confronts the youth, hand resting on the tabled sword. Calmly, the buyer slaps down cash, stunning both the woman and onlooker. Nearby, a desperate youth clutches his head, spiraling into frustrated panic. 2 uneasy allies sit gripping their items, bracing for the coming clash. The vendor rejects the huge payment, insisting on a smaller price and thanks. The benefactor keeps pushing the cook to accept repayment despite her protests. Seated, he calmly states the sword is far more valuable than expected. The young woman sits quietly on the bench, pondering the hidden secrets of the old blade. She gently promises the other that their secrets will never be shared. Solemnly, she hands over the sheathed sword, asking him to protect her heirloom. The swordsman evaluates his weapon and settles on a fitting name for it. The woman grips the cash, torn between her father's keepsakes and urgent financial need. Later, the pair discuss a level 10 monster that once devastated Day City. A towering demon slaughters defenders while remaining fighters buy time for civilians to escape. Amid the ruins, only an ornate sword remains as evidence of the devastating incident. Deadly radiation from the monstrous presence engulfs half the city, casting an ominous green over every surface. A terrified girl stands at the radiation's edge as chaos spreads. Later, she remembers her sibling's sword talent and everyone's high expectations. The thoughtful young woman reveals she abandoned close combat to become a healer, prioritizing survival after the Great Ghost's attack forced another to require constant, specialized care. The young man quietly assesses the devastating effects left behind after the monster's defeat. He glares ahead, vowing his absolute hatred for all monsters. Two figures sit on a park bench, debating whether disaster victims are eligible for government compensation after a major incident. The woman relaxes after speaking honestly and suggests they head back. An excited cook rolls up her sleeve, promising to show her real skills. Afterward, the two groups split, with escorts guiding him while she walks ahead alone. Two suited agents voice doubts while another goes ahead, unsure the secret realm exists. Elsewhere, two suited men say colleagues are checking illegal markets to catch the thief. The pair hurries off, formally beginning their pursuit of the elusive thief. Soon, dark clouds gather over the empty courtyard, hinting at approaching danger. An annoyed young woman pours water while complaining about relentless online critics. Suddenly, urgent knocking startles her, and she warily looks toward the door. The alert figure suddenly spots intruders from the investment company and urgently warns the others. The heavy door shudders repeatedly as something powerful slams against it. The startled person spins around as threatening shadows close in behind. The girl in the wheelchair recoils as a large wooden weapon blocks her path. A determined figure grips the wooden sword while seated beside a wheelchair. The woman in the wheelchair forcefully strikes the door with her sword, leaving deep marks. Then a grinning intruder kicks in the door with two allies. A perceptive figure steps forward, confidently exposing the presence of an intruder. The girl in the wheelchair grips her sword defensively as her sneering opponent approaches. She steps forward, brandishing the wooden sword to block passage. Suddenly, she lunges from the wheelchair, swinging her weapon overhead. The swordswoman launches a powerful strike at her calm opponent, who remains unfazed and acknowledges her impressive skill. The girl tumbles from the wheelchair and hits the ground with a jolt. The furious woman clenches a wooden pole and hurls insults upward at her adversary. A startled figure recoils as a sudden kick hurtles toward her. The towering attacker taunts her, daring an attack as she readies. Meanwhile, armed intruders search the house as an injured woman lies. Two suited thugs wreck the living room with swinging metal pipes. Two underlings outside at night report failing to find the targets. The enraged girl grabs a stick and threatens the looming attacker. The hesitant subordinate voices concern about the risky plan, while the uneasy leader reluctantly agrees but insists they must make a strong impact. The superior assigns a new mission, gripping the subordinate's shoulder. One figure hands over truck keys to another, and instructs them to wait in the truck and drive into the yard when the targets appear. A planner proposes faking an accident with a trash truck. A suited group gathers outside, laughing as hidden tensions simmer. Then lightning crashes, intensifying the storm over the area. Rain lashes down over the apartment complex as a storm engulfs the city. Two companions run through rain, one shielding herself, one carrying a sword. Suddenly, the young woman freezes, staring ahead into the downpour. A soaked onlooker stares at someone collapsed beside an overturned wheelchair. The wounded woman struggles up in the rain, glaring toward her unseen attackers. A frantic ally runs through the rain, shouting while another silently watches. The group quickly responds to the ambush, preparing to carry the injured person inside. The young woman urgently instructs her companion to wheel the girl inside as she rushes to save the belongings from the rain. In the pouring rain, a caretaker pushes a wheelchair-bound companion toward the building, unaware that a knife-wielding figure is closing in from behind. Two figures freeze under the pouring rain as a sudden, thunderous noise breaks the tense silence. A young man gathers his resolve in the downpour, preparing for what comes next. A lone survivor stands in the rain, staring at a shattered, smoking gate. The battered fighter remains standing in the relentless rain, refusing to back down. In the truck, a man mocks the house, calling it a garbage dump. The man inside the car cruelly orders the other to step out into the pouring rain. However, a defiant woman issues a threat as the truck looms before the building. The panicked young woman screams into the storm, desperately reaching for her sibling. A nervous figure tightens his grip on the bicycle handle as rain pours down. A desperate woman struggles to escape the restraining grip. The young man firmly holds the anxious girl back in the rain, stopping her from moving forward. Meanwhile, a determined figure approaches a wounded man. A guard stands by a wheelchair woman as a battered stranger approaches. Afterward, one battered figure stands as the other turns away silently. Two companions wait at the entrance, one watching, one gripping a stick. The distressed person clutches the stick and demands an explanation. In the pouring rain, the anguished woman demands to know if there is any justice left in the world as the silent figure listens. A weary man stands outside, admitting that hope never existed. Standing in the rain outside the building, The cynic dismisses the idea of genuine fairness while the one in the wheelchair questions if it ever truly exists. Two figures stand close under a wooden beam as one quietly reflects on the unfairness of the world, even in something as simple as falling rain. Two figures stand close in the rain, one delivering a grave lesson as the other grips a wooden sword in silent focus. A stormy scene highlights a blade symbolizing the world's cruelty. The resolute fighter destroys the wooden staff with a single, forceful punch as energy swirls around him. A terrified person screams while clutching a broken wooden plank. A cold speaker dismisses their problems, insisting his priorities lie elsewhere. A weary walker trudges through puddles, complaining about constant misfortune. The worried figure in the wheelchair watches as the other turns away and leaves into the rain. The young man stands in the rain and declares his unwavering intent to eliminate his enemies, while the silent figure in the wheelchair listens behind him. Informant warns rival company's fighters and leader are overwhelming. A wheelchair-bound man begs the staff-bearer to stay or everything collapses. Meanwhile, a swordsman draws his crackling blade in the rain. A lone swordsman stands resolute in the rain, tightening his grip as he prepares to draw his blade. He raises his sword, prepared to attack any approaching enemy. A relentless storm overtakes the city, shrouding it in darkness. Rain lashes an investment tower, its signs glowing through the storm. Two well-dressed figures welcome a third individual into the rain-soaked entrance, initiating tense negotiations over the site's redevelopment. Outside, a lone person stands among umbrellas, silently staring upward. The same figure stands in the rain, steeling himself for confrontation. A broad-shouldered figure in formal attire stands guard in the bright lobby as others linger nearby. Suddenly, a bespectacled worker looks up, startled by something. A newcomer enters gripping a sword, shocking a nearby observer. Two suited men react angrily to the lobby disturbance. The suited pair confront the intruder, ordering him to lower his weapon. Then another figure steps between them, blocking the confrontation. A quiet youth turns away, leaving the tension unresolved. The young man recoils, shocked by an abrupt revelation. The frightened youth recoils as a bloody scratch mark suddenly slashes across his face. Meanwhile, a ruthless fighter advances, leaving blood and rubble behind. An ominous mission appears, commanding the use of a deadly blade and a flying weapon to eliminate all threats for a promised upgrade. He silently hesitates, weighing the mission's demand. Two armed pursuers exit the elevator and advance toward him. A bloodied weapon floats in the air, dripping. Meanwhile, the swordsman approaches as the group recoils from severed remains. Two suited agents warn that a dangerous intruder is coming. Soon, he braces as four armed attackers surround him. Two swordsmen rush him, starting their attack. The fighter shatters one sword while dodging the others. He lunges forward, swinging his blade at them. The cold fighter swiftly decapitates two opponents without hesitation. The swordsman turns away, leaving one shaken enemy standing. Then his eye glows red as a hidden power awakens. The young man freezes, stunned by this sudden change. A sudden, forceful attack tears through the scene in a swift blur. Suddenly, he stabs a suited attacker with a hidden blade. A huge spiked weapon swings down with crushing force. The swordsman drives his blade through the attacker, cutting him down in a single, bloody strike. One suited foe notices the lodged blade and moves to exploit it. The calm fighter pins a wounded foe as a new assailant descends from above, sword raised to strike. A young man grips the sheathed ancient sword at his side. An attacker slams a crushing blow into his opponent. The wounded man staggers back, coughing blood from the punch. Afterward, the swordsman stands over his defeated foe, bloody weapon lowered. A lone fighter walks through the bloody lobby, causing everyone nearby to flee. Three schemers plot to take possession of the sister's house, ready to use any means necessary. Two businessmen discuss redeveloping the property for major profit. Suddenly, a startled man bursts into the room, sensing trouble. One man warns his partner that an intruder is killing people inside. A panicked underling reports that a lone intruder massacred many in the lobby. The cautious man says they only target the powerless, avoiding influential professionals. The leader urges the tense group to investigate, prompting immediate movement around the table. A huge axe slams into the floor, shaking the area. Soon, three enforcers advance together, led by the axe wielder. Three suited men halt when one suddenly notices something ahead. A terrified man backs against the stairwell and desperately begs for mercy. Then a determined attacker releases dark energy, blasting through the stairwell. A lifeless figure is found sprawled in blood at the base of the stairs, casting a chilling atmosphere over the scene. In a dim room, one person stands rigid, listening to heavy footsteps. Both men freeze in the hallway, rattled by the sudden disturbance. One of the men rallies the group with a bold declaration, trying to boost their confidence. The blonde mage summons glowing crystals of energy. A nervous fighter grabs the blazing axe, preparing to fight. The youth fires his futuristic weapon, launching an energy attack. Three attackers surround a calm opponent, demanding surrender or death. Meanwhile, a subordinate reports their new target caused the recent attack. The swordsman sizes up three foes, readying to transform. A massive metal beam smashes through the wall, scattering debris everywhere. Both figures brace themselves for a violent clash, weapons raised in the shadowy room. Two anxious figures brace themselves, suspecting an imminent stealth attack in the darkness. In the shadows, the speaker boldly asserts dominance over time and space. The fighter activates night vision, gripping two pistols as his eyes glow. A watcher spots strange armored legs approaching across the floor. The armored enemy gathers dark energy around a corrupted blade. Then an imposing armored warrior with glowing eyes emerges from the shadows. The anxious figure raises his weapon, bracing himself as unnatural green light floods the room. Alone, he faces the looming monster emerging from darkness. The hulking shadow creature bursts forth, its transformation complete. The desperate man raises both pistols and aims at the hidden adversary. Finally, a blood-soaked weapon swings hard, spraying everywhere. A wounded youth clutches his shoulder, barely staying upright. An ally searches the dark room with an axe, worried. The youth lies motionless in a growing pool of blood. Lightning strikes the tower as heavy rain pours outside. An armored attacker raises his sword over a stunned opponent. A devastating blow tears through the darkness, signaling a sudden and violent assault. A fighter rushes in, using his axe to block. The shaken survivor realizes the attack nearly killed him. Nearby, a stunned onlooker recoils as blood splashes before him. With unwavering focus, the young mage unleashes a colossal ice arrow toward his target. A hulking armored beast charges ahead, radiating dark energy. A figure's arm mutates into a monstrous claw as dark energy crackles in the air. A wounded figure reaches up toward a falling glowing blue crystal. Then a desperate figure releases energy, shattering the blue crystal into shards. The battered figure collapses to the ground amid shadows and red light. A monstrous being with glowing red eyes steps forward, towering. A startled man freezes when an unexpected noise echoes nearby. Clutching a staff, he braces as a monster approaches from the darkness. The startled man staggers back as a crimson slash tears across his neck. The wounded man recoils while blood pours from his neck. An armored monster fatally stabs a victim with its sword. The blood-stained sword gleams, indicating a dangerous power awakening. 3 fighters raise swords as surrounding shadows prepare to strike. A shocked bystander freezes as he realizes the threat. Suddenly, a monstrous armored enemy appears before the stunned man. A wary observer watches as a shadowy figure emerges in the darkness. The terrified man recoils as the armored monster looms over him. Soon, glowing red symbols fill the room with hostile energy. The armored foe stands over multiple defeated, bleeding opponents. The frustrated figure abruptly interrupts the chaos with a commanding shout. A calm swordsman blocks the stairwell, confronting a wounded enemy. The alert fighter senses a powerful level 6 professional approaching. The cautious figure inspects the sword closely, searching for any trace of demonic influence. Meanwhile, a towering being mutates into a sword-wielding demon. A swordsman descends the stairs, threatening a human-demon hybrid outcast. The sinister figure threatens the unseen opponent and reveals a scheme to please powerful backers by capturing a new hybrid being. An armored attacker slashes at the staggering foe, drawing a scream. A surge of green energy shoots forward in a cutting wave. The monster recoils as a crushing blow strikes its head. Finally, the armored entity steps from darkness, fully transformed and terrifying. Injured horned figure dodges a lethal strike from the eye-patched enemy. Meanwhile, the challenger gauges his foe as a glowing sword swipes past. A relentless fighter engulfs the monstrous foe in a torrent of searing green energy blades. The man is blasted back by a powerful green energy slash. Then a green blade pierces the wounded fighter's chest. A towering warrior stomps down, sending green energy surging across the field. The determined attacker lunges forward with ferocious intensity, launching a relentless assault. Next, the swordsman releases a charged strike toward his opponent. The armored monster staggers as green energy crashes into its chest. The swordsman drives a devastating energy slash straight at the creature. The schemer notes his trap has succeeded as the opponent is caught. The youth clenches his fist, steeling himself for the coming clash. He pulls the trigger, firing a bullet from the revolver. Soon, the man shoots at the monster lurking in the shadows. A finger squeezes the trigger, firing the gun. The shooter fires point blank, shattering the armored creature's head. Afterward, the veteran boasts that his technique has left the opponent unable to survive. The armored observer inspects the corpse, gauging how valuable it might be. Suddenly, a hulking armored being emerges from dark smoke, dominating the scene. The usually calm man recoils in disbelief, overwhelmed by shock. The swordsman closes in, weapon raised, certain his opponent cannot escape at this range. Meanwhile, the strategist realizes the enemy anticipated his feint. The swordsman demands to know how the armored foe learned the technique. The mentor explains the unique rapier style's power, highlighting its agility, precision, and deadly effectiveness. The swordsman challenges the masked monster's claim to that sword style. The enraged fighter insists killing the monster is a righteous duty. The youth faces the horned creature, questioning its sense of righteousness. However, the young man ignores its motives and stays unmoved. The stern figure with flask and gun condemns anything hindering society's progress. The swordsman raises his glowing blade, vowing righteousness against the monster. The fighter lunges forward, firing a green energy slash at his foe. Elsewhere, a lone figure in red mist reels from a revelation. An armored enemy approaches his rival, red energy crackling around him. The young man's eyes widen as he finally understands something crucial. A devastating strike cuts through the battlefield with overwhelming force. Suddenly, a demonic spear lunges toward the startled survivor. A horrified bystander freezes, unable to react to the attack. The stunned fighter is slashed by dark energy that tears through his torso. A furious attacker releases a surge of dark energy that rips violently through the area. The wounded youth screams as a brutal force pierces through his mouth. Lightning strikes the structure as heavy rain falls. An attacker impales his enemy on red glowing spikes. The cornered man demands to know what his enemy is. An armored warrior grips his sword and issues a harsh warning. Then the same fighter advances, demanding why his identity was concealed. The transformed foe releases dark energy that floods the area. A colossal crimson blade crashes down, launching a shadowy attack. Next, a cursed blade slams down, erupting with fiery power. The armored enemy erupts with dark energy while wielding a blood-red sword. A determined fighter seizes the ornate sword amid swirling dark energy. A detailed system panel reveals the ominous abilities and unique storage feature of a newly acquired sword. A devastating special ability is revealed, promising a blood-forged blade capable of tearing through the ground. Later, a wary man examines a glowing red mark, questioning a new identity. The cautious wielder grips the sword, feeling a faint heartbeat within. The armored monster raises a demonic blade, boasting their unstoppable combined power. A terrified underling screams in panic over what happened to the boss. An armored being radiates dark energy, revealing a terrifying new form. The armored warrior lifts a glowing blade as the captive begs for life. He then releases sinister energy from the cursed sword. Finally, the determined wielder releases crimson energy to summon the Blood Raven. An armored attacker unleashes a massive wave of fire. The lone figure braces himself as a massive, sinister crystal erupts with dark energy before him. A terrified boy is engulfed by deadly red energy. A huge blood-red slash rips through a high rise. Then, a building is struck while soldiers gather below. Armored troops brace behind shields in the rain. A massed unit raises a staff and blasts the city. Soon, a subordinate reports the building is surrounded and forces ready. The commanding figure orders negotiation to assess the situation and avoid unnecessary harm before taking action. An official declares nearly everyone inside will face federal judgment. However, the leader vows no excuse will stop punishment. Armed guards tense as a shadowy figure approaches. The solitary figure waits in the downpour, half hidden beneath an umbrella. A wounded fighter stands smiling faintly, still ready to fight. A worried woman hears someone went alone to confront the company. Meanwhile, a determined ally grabs the golden artifact and flees. The younger girl dashes toward the door, determined to follow the one ahead. An abandoned yellow umbrella lies on snow amid falling debris. A startled woman snaps her gaze towards something alarming. Finally, a soldier asks if the umbrella woman is their target. In the rain, an officer questions a worried woman about investigation. A helmeted guard asks if they recognize the silent man. A startled girl reacts in alarm to the scene. The anxious woman urgently asks about the injured man's condition. Soon, the helmeted officer confirms via device the target is healthy. An isolated fortified prison looms under a dark sky. The captive sits anxiously, hands bound behind the chair in the harshly lit interrogation room. The interrogator grows frustrated when the newcomer refuses to reveal his identity. A uniformed aide reports the suspect confessed but revealed little. Meanwhile, investigators find the detainee has no official records anywhere. An investigator reveals the secret realm thief is actually this suspect. Elsewhere, a white-haired man wonders who the mysterious woman really is. An official hands over a report showing the suspect's unexpectedly high rank. A bespectacled man explains the suspect is an injured ex-soldier. One man died in a tragedy, another's sister was permanently disabled. A nervous witness recounts a newcomer appearing in the secret realm. An elder reflects that Kai Jiang was targeted for violent land seizure. The wary observer recoils in apprehension, reacting to the brutality displayed by the swordsman. The subordinate pauses by the doorway, signaling the attention of the imposing figure in charge. The two men steel themselves and stride toward the room, ready to confront whoever awaits inside. The cautious observer weighs the strength of the city's top defenders, convinced the person inside poses little threat. The intruder bursts into the room, kicking the wooden door wide open. A troubled man stares intensely at his reflection in the mirror. Then, the young man pauses, calculating his next move. An imposing figure steps into the room, silently scanning the area with a piercing gaze. The older figure wonders why the man gazed at the cloak with such a nostalgic look. A clerk gripping documents points everyone's attention toward the newcomer. Later, the uniformed officer delivers a grim warning to the accused. The officer presents a harsh choice: face execution or join the Atonement Battalion, risking death on the front lines to earn a chance at redemption. The older man explains that once criminals are sent to the Atonement Battalion, survival is nearly impossible, as most perish in the first battle and only those who defeat hundreds or even thousands might return. The troubled man doubts brutal combat can truly erase his crimes. The older interrogator presses the younger man about his experience on the monster front lines, but receives only guarded, evasive answers. A tense silence stretches between the two officials facing each other. An investigator starts comparing photographs to uncover the stranger's identity. Then, the uniformed veteran recalls their shared monster front, insisting some hope still remains. A grizzled fighter boasts long service and claims unmatched qualification for the front. A decorated officer shows a medal, confirming past service under a masked commander. A loyal subordinate silently reaffirms his loyalty while looking at his medals. Finally, a stern leader slams the desk, warning that hidden unrest could collapse the peace. A resolute official warns against acting before the federal parliament decides. Restrained in the interrogation room, the defiant captive braces as the confrontation with the aggressive questioner begins. The stern interrogator leans in, demanding clear acknowledgement. A captive learns unauthorized access to the secret realm threatens widespread chaos. Later, the young man withdraws silently, burdened by troubling thoughts. Two men sit tensely in a formal setting, awaiting a critical decision. An elderly official warns that resisting the authorities is pointless. The uniformed elder warns the other man to cooperate and confess if he wants any leniency before being transferred to the capital. A solitary silhouette slips through the doorway, vanishing into the illuminated corridor. The youth weighs the transfer offer, remembering his time in the capital. He admits to himself that progress is currently impossible. A new main mission is revealed on the urgent announcement screen, signaling a significant turning point. The update warns lingering radiation may soon revive the great obscenity. Another mission orders destroying a major threat to obtain a coveted core. A calamity-level armored beast appears over the city, nearly unstoppable. The observer recalls the monster always returns by seizing a new host. After the trial, the new arrival was sent straight to the front line and immediately began tackling Day City's crisis. The triumphant figure stands amid the wreckage after destroying the monstrous threat, but the group behind him responds with harsh criticism. An angry crowd surrounds the masked fighter, blaming him and demanding apology. Under public pressure, he faces the podium, recalling his forced confession. The young man sits resolutely, firmly declaring the end of his masked persona and embracing his true self. The indifferent figure dismisses any concern for the fate of others. Meanwhile, a giant steps forward, raising a striped blade menacingly. Two older men discuss the current state of the monster front line, while one lights a cigarette by the window. Thus, the commander surveys the carnage and notes the enemy's unnatural speed and weapons. The analyst concludes the enemy has multiple powers beyond normal professionals. A suited official silently recognizes a youth vastly outclassing veteran hunters. However, the officer scorns such loyalty, calling sacrifice for an outcast pointless. A bearded official asserts the Federation's authority, while casually smoking. The smoker doubts whether such limited genius can even be measured. Shattered fragments drift downward through the silent darkness. Now, the scene shifts to a vast metropolis dominated by towering structures. After the catastrophe, people rebuilt the city, but its appearance now resembles an average second- or third-tier city from the previous century. The capital rises as a bright emblem of advanced human civilization. Officials urgently debate the escalating threat posed by a ruthless criminal responsible for a recent massacre. A blonde reviewer studies the photo, startled by the subject's strength. An enraged leader demands maximum punishment for threats to Federation order. The furious man demands a public execution to set an example while angrily lamenting his financial losses. The stern figure orders the prisoner to be sent to the monster retreat at the front lines and assigned to the 1st Division of the Atonement Battalion. The panicked man realizes the verdict and begins to sweat in fear. The leader sits in the shadows, calculating how to maintain his subordinates' loyalty through fear and surveillance. The speaker halts further discussion and urges attention to more urgent matters. The furious man demands an explanation for the ongoing lack of information about the masked target. Officials sit in silence as the strategy meeting begins. At the conference table, the blonde figure reviews documents, while doubts about mask's whereabouts linger. A tense discussion unfolds over an open dossier as one person warns of a possible future ambush from the opposing side. The group insists the masked enemy is powerless and harmless now. An official demands an explanation for the masked man's courtroom disappearance. A skeptic asks what mask can do with so little power. Afterward, the officials review their success weakening mask and dismiss further danger. The leader sits with hands clasped, calculating his next move to maintain absolute control. The person at the head of the table sacrifices authority and benefits to sway the group toward expelling the disruptive figure. A suited advisor orders them to locate mask, then changes the topic. Next, a presenter reports surging monster incidents and warns of an unprecedented threat. The blonde superior doubts his team can last a month without mask. A tense office worker scans the test results and sees only 32%. A quiet official wonders if their harsh measures against mask were necessary. The cautious figure hesitantly extends a hand, uncertainty flickering in the tense air. Then a suited leader confronts the room, daring anyone to oppose the decision. A frightened subordinate clutches his papers and begs for mercy. The blonde figure slams his hands on the table, challenging the group's resolve as tension rises in the meeting room. Officials debate reallocating elite troops from the city. One official warns moving main defenses will expose the city. An opponent accuses him of hiding greed behind false concern. In response, a bureaucrat threatens his family over cutting city defenses. The accused man explodes in anger at the accusation. Their superior slams the table, abruptly ending the argument. Afterward, the leader announces downsizing the city's defense force. A commander orders the prisoners sent to the capital as a warning. A large government facility rises prominently, marking the center of the city's security operations. Inside, an official clears the pair but warns they might testify later. A subdued captive sits with head lowered as the figure behind tightens their grip on the chair, demanding answers. The clerk explains an indictment is coming and their attendance will be required. The wheelchair-bound woman insists the accused only punishes those who deserve it. Her companion rejects the violence, insisting killing is always wrong. Angrily, another asks whether the notorious killer's victims were actually innocent. A bedridden woman condemns those who destroyed countless families. Later, an elderly officer announces a harsh verdict to the masked prisoner. A young aide rushes forward, urgently calling to the senior officer. The woman in the wheelchair sits tense, silently facing the figure. Finally, the officer warns that judgment must stay impartial. The younger one confronts the elder about doing nothing. The girl in the wheelchair asks if they are powerless. A man stares ahead, his glare hardening. The older man condemns the younger woman's actions as the air grows tense between them. A tense companion grips the wheelchair, bracing for impact. The wheelchair user wonders quietly if resisting might be wrong. Enraged, she yells that this entire world is wrong. Later, she admits injustice has drained her will to protest. The older girl gently urges her younger companion to leave the park. The determined woman signals she is ready to proceed. Their leader worries she may not recover, while another listens silently. The uniformed subordinate questions his superior's statement with calm curiosity. The elder notes, her anger has pushed her power unusually high. On the path, she regrets a power that went unused. The observer fixates on the seated figure, questioning the usefulness of anger when physical limitations cannot be overcome. Frustrated, someone dismisses her earlier outburst as pointless. Suddenly, a wall explodes, throwing the street into chaos. The young woman urges the other to rest while she handles the chores and contemplates a solution for their troubled companion. The withdrawn girl walks with lowered head, clearly depressed. The resolute figure steals her determination, preparing for the next challenge. A solitary figure sits quietly in a wheelchair as sunlight streams into the silent room. He clenches his fists, vowing to become a beacon of hope. A resolute fighter stomps down, smashing the ground with immense force. Then the girl stands from her wheelchair and faces the blinding light. His legs tremble as anxiety takes hold. With hesitant steps, the anxious figure slowly enters the room. Soon after, a confident figure strides in, marking the next development. The young woman outside hesitates, apologizing for the untidy state of the room. The onlooker staggers back in shock as something unexpected happens. Suddenly, the woman stands and enters, leaving the watcher stunned. The distressed girl reaches out and cries desperately for her sister. A determined attacker thrusts a glowing hand forward to release power. A colossal, lightning-charged tentacle snatches the terrified girl as her companion shouts for her to escape. Several uniformed officials anxiously debate the consequences of a sudden order to redeploy a large portion of the city defense force. Their commander convenes them to explain the purpose of this meeting. An older officer recoils, suddenly realizing something alarming. The startled leader senses a strong aura as his aide questions him. He warns that a dangerous presence is approaching. The officers hastily deny the threat's return, insisting their chief is wrong. Finally, a figure crashes through a window, scattering glass over the city. The commanding figure urgently orders the immediate evacuation of the entire city and activates the emergency military plan. The resolute elder crashes through ice and energy, declaring responsibility with unwavering resolve. The city pulses with activity as vehicles and crowds stream through the intersection. A lone figure weaves through the crowded street as a giant screen reports the recent capture of the Kaijiang building culprit. A man with glasses quietly notes the changing season in the city. Someone notices that the roses outside the window are blooming unusually early. A cluster of pink roses sways softly as a gentle breeze passes through. The roses continue blooming brightly under the light. Rose petals scatter through the sunlight, filling the scene with dramatic intensity. Suddenly, a young man looks up and notices something unusual above the city. A massive hornet bursts from the storm clouds, charging straight ahead. The giant insect descends over the city, which is now covered in petals. Then, a monstrous rose-limbed creature erupts from the swirling petals. Roses rapidly blossom across the surface as petals swirl through the air. A startled youth recoils as a large rose abruptly collides with his face. Afterward, rose petals scatter in strong wind beneath the darkening sky. The traffic light turns green, and vehicles start moving again. Unsettling sounds spread through the crowd as pedestrians begin crossing. The attentive younger man signals to his companion that it's time to cross as the traffic light turns green. A wary figure stops, staring into the darkness ahead. The troubled figure turns away in silence, tension rising as blue energy swirls and red petals drift through the air. Suddenly, thorny vines erupt and entangle the struggling person. A frightened youth stumbles back, screaming at a horrifying sight. A hand drops severed hair and petals into the air. A destructive blast erupts on the street, obliterating someone instantly. Meanwhile, an onlooker reaches out, quietly catching drifting petals. A calm watcher surveys the panicked crowd fleeing the devastation. A colossal, crackling energy sphere smashes through city buildings as stunned bystanders look on in disbelief. A faceless monstrosity bursts forward, hurling debris and petals aside. A rose-headed entity approaches a towering wall of human faces. Meanwhile, a team races down the ruined street while their leader urges calm. A confident fighter appears dramatically, declaring his arrival. The two survivors look up with renewed hope as a skilled rescuer arrives. The determined figure draws his weapon, energy crackling as he prepares to face the threat. From above, a fighter fires a devastating blast at the pink mass. The swordsman flaunts his glowing blade and mocks the monster. A startled man staggers back as green energy erupts from him. However, the monster reappears with a grotesquely mutated arm, shocking nearby witnesses. An armored warrior grasps the spreading green infection's true danger. Finally, a colossal grotesque limb slams into the city, scattering debris. Four shadowy intruders plunge from the stormy sky, closing in on the city below. Meanwhile, an observer spots demons appearing and questions the monitoring bureaus in action. The commander leads his squad to investigate an alarming, unexpected transformation. The observer urgently warns that, despite changes in the radiation's effects, its destructive purpose remains unchanged. A caped fighter slams onto a rooftop, scattering nearby civilians. One ally warns that monsters evolve unpredictably beyond normal understanding. The commanding figure urgently assigns patrol routes and warns the group to avoid any contact with the highly contagious human flowers. Soon, energy blasts streak through the sky, bombarding the city. A terrified man flees down the street, chased by a shadowy attacker. A bystander shouts a warning as monstrous plants rampage and attack civilians. The older figure urgently orders everyone to get down. Meanwhile, outside the building, the commander orders two subordinates to attention. The elder unleashes a surge of energy, his face illuminated by its fierce power. A determined caster summons a colossal fire dragon wreathed in blue lightning. The panicked man shields himself from a crashing barrage of fire and energy. A massive burning entity wrapped in blue lightning hurtles downward toward the city. Moments later, a devastating explosion engulfs the city in flames. A burning guardian steps forward, shielding stunned bystanders on the street. A startled man looks up as debris begins crashing down around him. A suited man clutches his face as corrosive energy destroys his features. The flower-headed creature erupts with green energy. The tense figure reveals that the ash carries the infection of the great obscenity. Unnatural vines spread rapidly, engulfing the entire city beneath a thick layer of greenery. Enormous vines surge through the city, swallowing buildings. Monstrous vines and creatures swarm the city, overwhelming everything. Meanwhile, a lone observer surveys the ruined city choked by vines. Corrupted tendrils slam into a glowing barrier protecting survivors. Then, the commander orders the squad to stop firing at corrupted creatures. An elder warns them to contain all contaminated fragments. One man angrily demands an explanation for the devastated city. The white-haired leader explains the full scale of the catastrophe. Two officials urgently confirm that the ominous presence signals the return of the great obscenity. An elder explains that even seemingly immortal monsters can ultimately die. The narration describes a jellyfish that endlessly rejuvenates and may live forever. A stern officer says these monsters' rare immortality ends if their medium is destroyed. Later, a mutated plant monster appears, showing lingering radiation now spawns polluting abominations. A bearded man erupts, shouting in rage. The older man leans forward with a stern glare, demanding an explanation. Officials formally vow by decree to remove all remaining catastrophe effects. After the masked leader departed, subordinates ignored orders, stole relief funds, and allowed the infected contamination to worsen. The bearded officer regrets the consequences of disobeyed commands. Meanwhile, officials question the bureau about infection radiation spreading. The white-haired interrogator demands to know the exact location of the strongest energy disturbance, and presses for the whereabouts of the great obscenity. A suited aide warns the commander against confronting the monster alone. The vigilant figure scans the city, confirming the absence of high-level monsters. Thus, the strategist says now is best to kill the weakened, infectious mutant. The elder insists that immediate action is crucial to prevent even greater consequences. The bearded fighter glares at his foe and initiates battle. Then the leader warns of lethal radiation and orders key energy data transmitted. The scene unveils a breathtaking city of the future, filled with towering skyscrapers and advanced architecture stretching beneath a clear blue sky. Soon, a news bulletin on a passing train announces strengthened defenses for civilians. An announcement tells passengers local defense forces are heading to the front line. Another broadcast declares the city defense army will mobilize to boost strength. A nervous anchor cuts programming with an emergency news alert. Passengers tense up as a televised report announces the appearance of a disaster-level monster in a nearby city. Suddenly, colossal vines overrun the city, engulfing buildings and streets. Someone reads news on the city's destruction and a mysterious masked rescuer. In chat, users argue if the former hero is powerless or secretly returning. Amid the chaos, monstrous humanoid flowers surge through vine-choked streets as the defenders brace for the advancing green hell. Online commenters anxiously speculate about the enormous green disaster, questioning its origins and the involvement of a human-like demon. A new post urgently reports that the city's defenses are overwhelmed as the monster outbreak accelerates, with infected people rapidly mutating into plant-like creatures. Online posts claim the defense commander has already slain the monster threat. Meanwhile, news says the commander entered the horde alone despite looming disasters. The news anchor announces a live broadcast showing the city overtaken by colossal plant-like structures. Soon, massive vines rapidly engulf the city's abandoned buildings. A lone runner dashes ahead, dodging vines smashing into the road. The cloaked leader sprints forward, easily outrunning the pursuing tentacles. The warrior leaps into the devastated zone, charging straight toward the monsters. He stops in an overgrown clearing and cautiously scans for threats. The white-haired fighter faces the infested city as vines, beasts, and symbols gather. The seasoned man with the headset stiffens as he suddenly recognizes an unexpected figure. The armored woman rises on a giant rose, vines coiling as she dominates. Then she lifts a glowing flower to her eye, revealing its hidden power. An elder commander confronts her, denouncing her false claims of divinity. In the past, false beings posed as gods until humanity rejected their deception. Now a stern ally warns over calms that the woman is a deadly monster. The determined fighter acknowledges, racing forward as the ruined city streaks behind. An older officer glares, challenging the woman about her drastic transformation. The enigmatic figure fixes her gaze ahead, a flower obscuring one eye, and pointedly asks if there is any regret. Fingers tighten into a fist as electric energy surges outward, fueled by overwhelming regret. Blue lightning strikes the city, breaking the storm's silence. An enraged elder fires a devastating blast of blue lightning. A massive surge of blue energy tears violently through the scene. A fighter blasts the monstrous flower with concentrated blue energy. A figure stands while crackling blue energy engulfs her head. From a helicopter, soldiers record the commander disabling the monster. Elsewhere, a uniformed fighter summons a violent storm over the ruined city. The older fighter recoils in disbelief as his attack fails to harm his opponent. Suddenly, green magic engulfs a panicked person, forcing a violent transformation. The corrupted woman strains to resist the approaching green energy. A helicopter hovers tensely as massive vines surge upward through the ruined city. The woman rises as glowing vines crown her, awakening her strange power. Glowing vines and a spectral flower completely engulf the desperate person's head. A lone figure reveals a transformation, a huge flower and vines covering one eye. The elder announces he has activated a rapid self-healing ability. A horrified observer watches the monitor, stunned that the wounded survivor lives. The older foe rushes in, hurling lightning from his fist. Soon after, the robed elder releases another furious blast of blue energy. A defiant fighter endures a barrage of blue beams without surrendering. Finally, the transformed figure erupts with green power, her vine crown hiding her eyes. The rival smirks, flaunting green energy, and mocks her opponent. The elder recoils, suddenly alarmed by the rival's power. The cloaked attacker lunges toward the vine structure and its mystical flower. Meanwhile, a caped watcher senses danger as green streaks cross the sky. The officer taunts his foe, questioning whether he can match his speed. Suddenly, blue energy surges through the city, tearing buildings apart. The older fighter reels back in disbelief as a swift figure darts past, leaving him unable to keep up. The mocking fighter radiates power while belittling her trembling opponent. A massive lightning bolt strikes and devastates the city below. A determined attacker strikes the older man, driving him backward. Again, blue lightning rips across the deserted city uncontrollably. A stunned operator films the catastrophic scene from the helicopter window. Amid roots and energy, the observer realizes the opponent's speed is illusion. The plant manipulator vanishes from sight as twisting vines whisk her to a new location. Someone yanks another's hair while shouting a desperate order to retreat. The analyst grimly reveals that the threat cannot be killed as long as any of the humanoid flowers remain. The furious commander demands an immediate large-scale assault to wipe out the entire area. The white-haired fighter braces as swirling energy gathers for a confrontation. Trapped among writhing vines and flowers, the captive desperately searches for escape. The older figure summons powerful vines and swirling green energy, asserting control over the scene. A figure picks up a red-black uniform and hat crackling with green sparks. A person quietly brushes a gold medal, contemplating something. A bearded man smirks as ominous energy gathers behind him. The captive smugly taunts her enemy despite being bound by glowing vines. An older captive resists as glowing restraints spark around them. A determined fighter thrusts his hand, releasing a surge of crimson energy. The older man recoils as fiery red energy engulfs him. The older fighter unleashes a surge of desperate energy, refusing to back down. A colossal red beam strikes the city, obliterating everything in its path. A lone warrior unleashes devastating red energy, sending shockwaves through the area. A frantic cameraman captures the scene as a dangerous elemental overload threatens to turn fatal. A suited advisor explains this is a risky level-up method using life force, not suicide. A bearded ally shouts for help as red energy overwhelms his companion. The expert explains pushing the body's limit lets a lower stage rival a higher level. However, using that power leaves the body collapsing, with severe illness or possible paralysis afterward. The confident figure poses a challenging question while half her face is obscured by a large purple flower. A menacing elder releases overwhelming power as red energy crackles around him. The red-energized warrior charges straight through a barrage of massive vines. The woman claims she can teleport by transferring her mind to another body. Now, she struggles to transfer power while trapped by tendrils and red energy. The stunned enemy is punched in the face by a red fist. An older fighter charges forward, fist wrapped in crackling red energy. Meanwhile, a suffering man endures red lightning purging infection from his body. A broadcaster reports the disaster-class monster was felled in one blow. However, a bearded witness warns the monstrous threat still remains. A watcher notes the map's energy intensifying, signaling growing danger. The leader at the control desk firmly corrects the team's false assumption about the supposed threat. The anxious subordinate urgently questions the superior's intentions in the tense office. A storyteller explains a legend about a grounded giant growing stronger. A desperate informant says the monster uses thousands as fuel, requiring their deaths. The city becomes engulfed by a surge of supernatural vines spreading rapidly across the landscape. Analysts stare at the monitors, struggling to interpret the confusing data. A bespectacled worker recoils when a sudden burst of light appears. The observer urgently monitors the display as the energy spikes to its most dangerous level. A panicked survivor reports the disaster has reached 9th level and is worsening. A lone survivor surveys the ruined city from atop a colossal structure. Bathed in green light, a figure unleashes a costly, overwhelming power. A white-haired man stands in crackling red energy, obsessed with gaining strength. In eerie green light, a woman is accused of ignoring countless victims. Finally, towering sentient roses surround the city and loudly demand an explanation. Suddenly, barbed vines erupt with green energy, throwing the area into chaos. The figure stands on glowing vines and demands to know what is happening. Soon after, golden energy floods the lab, driving off guards and startling the scientist. The armored defender weakens as his energy barrier flickers under immense pressure. Thorny vines erupt and engulf him as glowing roses burst from his body. Empowered roses surge forward, flooding the area with aggressive green energy. Meanwhile, weary defenders watch the enemy withdraw, relieved yet unsure the danger is over. The armored fighter steadies himself and pushes forward, refusing to give up. The survivor stops, alarmed as strange energy crackles among the glowing rubble. The lone figure unleashes a surge of green energy that engulfs the city below. A massive green explosion erupts from the rooftop, shaking the city's skyline. Surrounded by green light, the youth undergoes a powerful transformation. The youth's eye flashes with green energy as he channels his power. A lone being hovers above the ruins, blasting green energy through the destroyed city. Soon, a defiant fighter faces a ghostly foe amid raging energy and twisting vines. A furious youth fires a surge of crackling red energy from his hand. The same fighter unleashes devastating red lightning, violently shaking the surroundings. Meanwhile, an enraged elder channels red lightning, blasting destruction across the battlefield. With a red-charged fist, the challenger hurls a powerful strike. Finally, a relentless figure charges ahead, releasing a massive wave of red lightning. A woman releases red lightning from her chest above the city. A shocked person is blasted in the chest by red energy. Then the woman plummets and unleashes massive red energy over the city. On live screens, a hero's attack kills the monster, thrilling viewers. In the subway, a suited man vows to master lightning, and passengers cheer. An enraged fighter smashes the enemy with a red energy punch. Meanwhile, a determined figure absorbs strange energy, preparing to release unknown power. An elder rushes forward and releases a devastating wave of red energy. The older figure smashes through the barrier, energy crackling wildly around him. A towering attacker thrusts a glowing arm, firing a surge of crackling energy. With a merciless grip, the figure seizes their opponent's head, channeling a surge of fierce green energy. The older figure stands amid fire and lightning, ready to annihilate everything nearby. Red energy floods a young man's face as he struggles to control awakening power. With a surge of force, the figure's clenched fist erupts with energy, shattering the obstacle amid swirling petals and the ruins. Later, petals drift over an abandoned city as plants slowly overtake the ruins. A mage raises her hand, gathering power despite overwhelming odds before the ruined city. A strategist studies tactical screens, analyzing key map zones and an unknown woman's image. A bearded man suddenly senses a critical drop in nearby energy. Passengers freeze as the subway screen displays a woman's distress signal. A guardian quickly covers a child's eyes as something disturbing occurs nearby. Two survivors in a subway car argue about whether help will come. The young man says the masked hero resigned a month ago. He panics, asking what they should do without the masked ally. Opposing groups confront each other in a tense subway aisle standoff. Meanwhile, a determined fighter with leaf-like limbs rises from flooded ruins. Online, a message condemns authorities for mishandling the crisis. Online commenters erupt in anger, blaming those who demanded the exile of the masked figure and challenging them to face the consequences on the front lines. One user demands to know where the mask is now. An urgent evacuation alert blares through the empty corridors as warning lights pulse, signaling the appearance of a disaster-level monster in the city center. A prisoner demands guards explain whether the chaos is real or another drill. The resolute figure narrows his eyes as crimson energy surges across his face, signaling the activation of his power. An enraged man slams the table, openly despising everyone present. The suited leader warns their hesitation will destroy the city within 90 minutes. He denounces their cowardice, reminding them humanity survived through past sacrifices. Afterward, the advisor cautions his ally against pushing the masked one too hard. The man suddenly freezes as a shocking realization hits him. The chairman silently dominates the tense meeting from the head seat. The anxious official urgently proposes deploying a small nuclear weapon to eliminate the monstrous threat and save the city. Several officials pressure the chairman to approve nukes, claiming it saves more lives. Finally, the embattled leader endures a hostile crowd's manipulative praise. The tense figure glares suspiciously at the group, sweat beading on his brow. A suited subordinate urgently informs a superior by phone about an unexpected development at the day's city site. The supervisor asks if their hired specialists have arrived. Meanwhile, an operative reports a possible humanoid sighting over comms. The suited worker recoils in terror at a sudden threat. An explosion rips through the prison rooftop, causing massive destruction. Consequently, a powerful blast gouges a smoking fissure in the ground. A lone fighter stands amid shattered earth after unleashing that power. A guard collapses, paralyzed by crackling red energy. Nearby, a determined attacker stomps down, sending debris flying. 2 guards rush in and discover the cell is empty. A shaken officer reports to superiors that the prisoner escaped. Wild vegetation rapidly overtakes the city as shadowy figures move through the deserted streets. One of the soldiers urgently reports the sudden disappearance to the commanding officer. Soon, defenders panic as glowing hostile plants launch another attack. Frightened troops run toward the front, fleeing the advancing plants. Armored enemies advance, sealing all exits with raised weapons. A masked fighter charges, slashing at the monstrous plants with energy. Another soldier smashes a glowing weapon onto the vine-covered stone. A staff user struggles against encroaching vines and giant luminous flowers. A soldier freezes as glowing vines block the road. Meanwhile, a fighter charges in, unleashing a powerful blast. A fighter is ambushed as shadowy tendrils lash toward him. Then the warrior pushes forward, tearing through the tentacle barrage. The survivor braces as slime-covered tentacles close in. Among debris, one calls a superior while supporting an exhausted ally. At last, the survivor looks up, realizing help has arrived. Bathed in a surge of green energy, the girl hovers above the city as enormous vines erupt and coil through the streets. Inside the helicopter, the pilot urgently begins to ascend as both rush to follow the tower's retreat order. Behind the camera, someone suddenly interrupts, urgently demanding attention. A tense officer in a cap reports incoming support by radio. A colossal energy slash tears through the city, annihilating everything in its path. A weary swordsman watches the Federation broadcast, gripping his massive blade. The swordsman releases an energy wave, severing the attacking vines. An armored warrior charges forward, releasing power that crushes all opposition. Amid the chaos, a dragon-like monster appears, marking a new mission. The wary observer senses that the monstrous entity's aura differs from the ruinous force once known, hinting at a new and unpredictable threat. Crimson energy flares as the scarred figure channels dangerous power. Vines and towering trees surge across the city, consuming everything in their path as nature reclaims the landscape. The city is swallowed by tendrils as life fuses into corruption. Pressing on, she forces through vines toward the obscenity's core. She braces herself to confront the towering monster above the city. Glowing green, the figure commands everyone to submit completely. Meanwhile, a floating herald proclaims a painless new world as vines spread. A young man suddenly feels something changing inside him. Then the entity declares all assimilated, erasing differences into one shared life. The preacher predicts many more will soon join the Pure Land. Multiple green orbs explode in sequence, blasting through the darkness. Soon, a scout hears a southern group has disappeared completely. Glowing green, the woman orders the hidden intruder to show themselves. Hovering overhead, she fires a torrent of green energy downward. The group suddenly realizes the masked figure's true identity. Red energy blades slice apart the writhing enemy tendrils. In response, a dark-cloaked fighter dives down and smashes a huge tentacle. Their foe realizes her attempt to assimilate the target has failed. An armored attacker charges forward with red energy as a glowing hand appears. A winged woman struggles to tear off the parasite clinging to her. A monster lunges and strikes with a cursed, energy-charged sword. Suddenly, an energy blast rips through his hand, spraying blood and green light. An armored warrior rushes in, releasing red energy slashes from a glowing sword. The enormous serpent reels as a deep wound gushes blood from its side. The lone figure braces as a radiant plant barrier bursts forth, unleashing a surge of mystical force. Glowing rose projections burst from the green light, intensifying energy. A mystical rose releases a surge of green energy into the cosmic void. The spear wielder braces against a violent surge of green and yellow energy. The transformed warrior, wreathed in darkness, slashes the towering enemy. The beast lunges forward, launching a brutal attack. A massive surge of green energy detonates, ripping through the area with explosive force. A single vine lashes out, charged with explosive green power. From a helicopter, a cameraman struggles to film the speeding battle. The alert young man stands among the tense crowd, eyes fixed on the dramatic broadcast unfolding across the massive screen. A cautious swordsman studies the aftermath, doubting whether the monster was human. Meanwhile, an armored fighter dodges blasts, risking everything to advance. The swordsman realizes the monster's cunning exceeds that of top hunters. The young man fears monsters may one day surpass humans. A demonic entity strikes a woman, clinging to her as green energy erupts. The armored fighter releases dark power and assumes a more fearsome form. Dark energy erupts upward, twisting into monstrous shapes. The lone figure unleashes a fearsome transformation as dark energy and monstrous wings erupt around him. Finally, the ominous figure becomes a full demon with glowing wings. The astonished onlooker recoils as the determined figure erupts with radiant, wing-like energy. A skeptical onlooker questions the sudden ability of the figure on the screen, analyzing the unexpected move with mounting curiosity. The strategist stands tall with a heavy weapon as the crowd erupts in astonishment at the audacious maneuver. A monstrous warrior charges, channeling dark energy through his blade. The fierce combatant hurls a massive wave of dark energy forward, engulfing everything in its path. Soon, a crazed figure blasts dark fire across the city. At the console, the operator confirms the monster's head is split. Monstrous glowing roses suddenly flood the empty roadway. Mutant flowers then spread across the city street, overwhelming everything. In the cockpit, the operator reports all humanoid flowers have frozen. A rose-headed being steps from the overgrowth to confront the intruder. In the rain, more rose-headed figures surround the intruder, demanding identity. Meanwhile, a disembodied voice echoes through the city, asking the intruder's identity. A wary woman with glowing vines over her eyes confronts the intruder. An armored fighter draws a cursed blade radiating lethal energy. The armored warrior looms silently, exuding clear hostility. The figure reveals a monstrous form as glowing serpent-like hair appears. A young woman offers her hand, seeking a peaceful resolution. Then, a determined leader grasps the glowing vine, claiming unity brings power over others. Finally, a defiant woman radiates power, vowing to remake the ruined world. A floating artifact appears as its powers and rules emerge. A masked agent weighs accepting the mission's tempting luminous reward. Meanwhile, a recruiter offers escape while an armored threat looms behind. A commanding voice orders them to flee through the mountain valley gap. A transformed woman advances, releasing radiant vines toward the River Sea Junction. Elsewhere, plant warriors march through ruins, vowing to destroy the world. A lone being descends above the city forest, radiating overwhelming, ominous power. Clutching his chest in agony beneath the torrential rain, the overwhelmed survivor staggers as a deafening roar from countless monstrous blooms nearly drives his heart to collapse. An onlooker notices the two monsters seem strangely linked. A hidden watcher confronts the armored foe overhead, preparing for battle. The reborn fighter rejects alliances, pursuing only a single personal goal. Desperate, he accepts any transformation necessary to gain overwhelming power. He confronts the silent enemy, demanding answers amid surging corrupted energy. The challenger meets their gaze, provoking them to finally finish the fight. Grinning, a vengeful woman summons a dark-winged entity to end everything. Her head erupts in green energy as constricting vines crush her. A surge of dark, fiery energy collides head-on with a powerful blast of green light. The shirtless figure unleashes a surge of green energy vines that explode outward with tremendous force. A spiked black sphere is pierced by green energy, releasing chaotic shockwaves. Finally, the woman unleashes green energy, driving monstrous tendrils rampaging through the city. A desperate figure screams in agony as corrupting green energy engulfs her. Meanwhile, an armored beast is snared by green tendrils. The monster breaks free, its razor wings crackling with energy. Then a monstrous force enters her mouth, taking control. The possessed attacker lunges forward, driven by green energy. The young man's eyes widen as he suddenly grasps a crucial truth. A sudden blast of dark energy slams into the young woman from behind, catching her completely off guard. The armored warrior charges the giant monster, searching desperately for its core. He pauses, analyzing where the creature's hidden body might be. A figure unleashes a surge of dark energy as menacing wings erupt from her back. The monster raises a cursed blade, gathering power for a strike. A brutal fighter impales the foe, releasing violent dark energy. Crimson beams pierce and shred the mass of pale tendrils. Green energy explodes, ripping apart the entangling vines. While bound by vines, the young woman is blasted by green energy. The furious swordsman unleashes a devastating surge of chaotic energy, slicing through monstrous claws in a blinding flash. The masked fighter is hurled back by a massive blast. A red energy slash tears through the chaos, scattering debris. Then a colossal energy wave erupts, engulfing everything nearby. The determined young man unleashes a powerful surge of green energy. The monstrous warrior surges forward, releasing a devastating burst of energy that engulfs the battlefield. A fighter unleashes green energy, blasting stone fragments everywhere. An energy slash cleaves a giant rock, scattering fragments. Glowing crystals become trapped as sharp energy beams surround them. Enchanted vines erupt, blasting glowing green energy outward. The intruder smashes through the glowing stone barrier and advances. The armored warrior channels energy into his blade and strikes. The resolute figure braces herself as a surge of magical thorns and energy closes in from all sides. She steels herself for the coming battle. A massive blade impales the torso, releasing red energy and blood. The young man narrows his eyes, steeling himself for what comes next. An enemy drives a cursed weapon through the floating girl's body. Meanwhile, the armored fighter collapses, completely drained of strength. Thick tendrils whip violently through the chaos, surging forward with explosive speed. The armored being transforms darkly and hovers above the city with tendrils. In response, a radiant fighter hovers and fires supernatural energy at the spiked enemy. The masked man hesitates as red energy intensifies around him. A young woman openly admires the unmasked man's appearance. Then, a fighter rips the armored mask off the enemy's face, exposing them. Finally, the glowing woman admits defeat, surviving only on her remaining energy. A colossal figure radiates green energy, looming over the city as a helicopter circles warily nearby. A shaken figure inside the vehicle clutches a camera and announces the fall of the city. The operator urgently sounds the alarm as unexpected danger appears on the control room monitors. The city now lies overgrown and battered by relentless storms. Soon, a small team advances cautiously toward the ruined city. Suddenly, thick vines engulf a building, asserting nature's control. A lone fighter leaps across the devastated city skyline. Then, a blazing meteor streaks down toward the empty city. A fiery object descends, setting the sky ablaze. An operator identifies the incoming object as a nuclear bomb. At the head of the boardroom, the anxious figure processes the Federation's drastic decision to launch a nuclear strike against the looming disaster. The blonde official slumps over his desk, consumed by regret. Meanwhile, a glowing being condemns the city's sacrifice of monsters and citizens. A wounded captive gathers strength, intent on revealing the truth. A resolute man transforms as glowing cracks spread across his face. The observer questions what the Federation truly is. Afterward, a determined fighter steps into a swirling portal. A panicked man shows his back, bound by glowing serpents. A helpless prisoner is trapped as giant glowing vines restrain her. Finally, immense glowing vines erupt, unleashing hordes of plant monsters. Glowing flower-like creatures suddenly emerge from the ground. A strange green artifact appears, emitting an ominous glow. Atop the massive, twisting green structure, the woman unleashes a surge of supernatural energy as the storm rages overhead. Then a huge arm rises, crackling with unleashed green power. A giant hand lunges out, blasting green energy. Energy rips through the forest, shaking trees and scattering leaves. A fireball slams down, flooding the area with burning light. The group stops, seeing something alarming ahead. An enormous glowing tree towers over the rainy city. Next, a massive energy wave sweeps through the forest, consuming everything. Many identical fighters charge forward in a synchronized rush. Several people are engulfed by a sudden explosion. The monstrous figure reels as a barrage of deadly projectiles tears into its shadowy form. The armored fighter braces while a blade swings toward him. Suddenly, massive roots erupt from the ground, scattering wild energy. A colossal blast engulfs the area, forming a mushroom cloud. Glass shatters and flames devour the building during the explosion. Debris hurtles along ruined streets as chaos spreads. An explosion slams the barrier, scattering debris as figures hide behind it. The young man shields the girl as burning debris falls around them. The taller figure shields the trembling girl as chaos and flames consume the shattered street around them. They huddle, watching the ruins, unsure what will happen. A violent explosion engulfs the roots, filling everything with smoke. Meanwhile, flames race across branches, threatening the tree and city. In the control room, staff report the main energy source vanished. The suited officer announces that the termination procedure is complete. A subordinate reports that Day City is now fully secured. A lone fighter leaps through the ruined city as debris falls. Two metals glint on the uniform as smoke drifts quietly through the air. A tense group quickly debates whether the natural disaster intentionally collided with the nuclear missile, uncertain if the threat has truly passed. A sharp youth points ahead, warning the team of danger. On the monitor, the ancient tree splits, releasing green light. A colossal magical barrier explodes into fragments as green energy surges outward. Petals drift upward over the city as sunlight breaks through the clouds. The entire city becomes covered in overgrown plants and glowing petals. Onlookers stare as huge vines engulf an apartment building. A young woman reaches up toward the swirling petals above. A watchful companion urgently warns the blissful figure to avoid the dangerous petals, fearing assimilation or mutation. Nearby, two people quietly catch drifting blossom petals in their hands. The man realizes the woman has not changed despite the mutation. A lone figure sits silently on a boulder amid the ruins, lost in thought as petals drift through the desolate city. Meanwhile, the armored monster carries the unconscious girl through petals. The young woman pauses as a sudden realization dawns on her. A solitary person reaches up toward the falling petals. Another figure extends a hand toward the drifting blossoms. Eventually, a gentle hand briefly touches a single drifting petal. A weary armored loner rests against a massive boulder. Then, a towering armored beast completes transformation and receives the great obscenity core. A spectral hand materializes and slams into the fractured ground. A monstrous energy hand suddenly seizes a glowing heart. The grim figure exposes the heart's dual origin, revealing its ominous power. A battered fighter crashes through a wall, forced to equip the core. The wounded figure presses the glowing core to their chest. The resolute survivor completes the transmission as energy pulses around his shadowed form. In the abandoned city, a glowing portal suddenly appears. The crowd erupts in celebration as news of the city's salvation spreads through the live stream. As the crowd erupted in support of their kind, tension quietly built beneath the surface. Glowing, unnatural plants rapidly overrun the city's empty streets. Soon, a young man transforms amid swirling green energy and leaves. One by one, trapped people burst from petals, returning to human form. The audience watches the shocking live stream in stunned silence. Meanwhile, some realize the bomb killed humans disguised as flowers. Two online posts debate whether the nuclear strike was justified or tragic. However, one post blames the masked person and claims another could have prevented this. Another message argues the previous allies' presence would have avoided casualties. Soon, chaotic arguments erupt as everyone shouts conflicting opinions. The broadcast abruptly cuts off, leaving all channels and online discussions in sudden silence. The screen clears, leaving only a brief removal notice. Then, a warning appears stating the content violated platform rules. All digital evidence of the event is completely erased. Later, officials convene in a meeting room to discuss the crisis. One anxious official stresses unresolved controversy and growing public pressure. A tired planner silently stares at the troubling document. Still, the conspirator regrets the bomb failed to overthrow the current leader. Another advisor proposes a simple solution, irritating the seated official. Now, a senior member announces the nuclear decision and questions sparing the masked one. One suited man questions the other's suspicion about an absent member's involvement in the incident. Instead, a bespectacled official blames the masked figure for needless sacrifices. Another speaker accuses the masked ally of abandoning Day City after gaining support. The confident speaker reveals that all the incidents in Day City are directly connected to the masked individual. Inside, a tense silence fills the meeting room. Two leaders sit at the table, waiting. The bespectacled aide assures the leader everything's handled. The strategist believes a fraction of great power can save humanity. Then the observer demands an update on the Morning Sun plan. A suited researcher reviews rapid experiment progress and unstable subjects. The bespectacled researcher proposes merging monsters and humans successfully. The resolute leader slams the desk, vowing to elevate humanity. Another interrupts while a planner proposes giving all humans monster powers. Elsewhere, a desperate worshipper raises arms to the moon, pleading. The sky clears, briefly signaling calm before further events. A shattered continental expanse becomes humanity's war front against monsters. Monsters overrun the burning city as survivors desperately flee. That wasteland, birthplace of calamity, birthed every later scourge. After a masked savior unleashed power, humanity reclaimed this land as the front line. A mysterious glowing light speeds through the dense forest by the cliffs and sea. 4 armed fighters confront a swirling blue portal in the forest. The guards exchange uneasy looks, dreading their superiors' questions. The 4 armored watchers hesitate before the portal, unsure who should speak. A shadowy figure emerges as a swirling vortex of blue energy intensifies around them. 4 armed figures brace in the forest as an unseen threat approaches. One fighter steps forward, blue energy flaring around her. An observer notes, she cleared the 7th level demon in 30 minutes. The masked warrior advances, displaying expert control of her glowing spear. She readies for battle, blue power surging as she focuses. Meanwhile, a cloaked stranger confronts an armored squad, demanding their strange behavior explained. A nervous aide reports that a disaster-class monster has appeared in Day City. The stern officer presses them on whether the monster threat is truly resolved. Then a shaken soldier announces their commander died heroically. The leader strides forward into the forest, spear in hand, as the anxious companion trails behind toward the next secret realm. 4 armored teammates hesitate, then advance toward the swirling portal. Nearby, the forest stands quiet and undisturbed. A stealthy intruder moves through brush toward a hidden meeting in the clearing. The gathered squad quietly gossips about their emotionless leader and strange powers. Their commander scolds them, threatening transfer to the atonement camp for slacking. Later, a team assembles in a clearing to confront a forming secret realm portal. The silver-haired captain pauses as a subordinate asks if everyone must enter. Another soldier complains about always being sidelined during missions here. The masked woman whirls around and demands clarification from someone behind. Finally, she confronts the doubter directly, demanding why they underestimated her. The burly figure frantically denies the accusation, raising his hands in alarm amid the trees. The armored warrior steps forward, spear ready, facing the portal. The resolute man squares his shoulders and confronts the shadowy presence within the glowing portal. Afterward, the group exhales, stunned by the commanding figure's presence. An armored ally nervously jokes their leader is a monster. Meanwhile, a cavern opens, revealing a glowing underground lake. The lone figure steps onto the rocky shore, gripping his staff and surveying the quiet lakeside. The determined figure grabs the staff as purple energy surges. He advances deeper into the cavern, wielding the crackling spear. The masked explorer senses imminent danger and tenses. Elsewhere, the youth inspects the carnage and realizes another party passed. Another hidden cavern appears, filled with pillars and a still pool. A careful observer notes the monsters were all killed by one weapon. A lone masked wanderer suspects someone else entered the secret realm alone. Suddenly, the masked fighter snaps to attention at an unseen threat. Several monster corpses lie scattered, evidence of a recent battle. The spear-wielding fighter charges forward and releases a barrage of energy slashes that tear across the ground. The masked woman narrows her eyes and prepares to fight. Then, a monstrous attacker lunges with a jagged blade, starting the clash. The young warrior charges with sword raised at 3 oncoming monsters. An observer watches a silver-haired warrior defeat 2 shark-headed enemies. Despite severe wounds, the battered fighter clashes with monstrous enemies. The lone fighter unleashes energy, holding back a swarm of monsters. A resolute figure tightens his grip on the staff as crackling purple energy surges around the weapon. A violent blast of purple energy crashes into the cave wall. An injured girl lies surrounded by foes, when an ally charges in. A colossal surge of energy bursts across the battlefield. A swordsman slashes one monster with a glowing blade as another approaches. The calm fighter crushes a shark-headed foe with a fatal strike. The warrior charges and clashes with two monsters, swinging his glowing sword. Suddenly, a searing purple blast hurls the muscular fighter forward. The masked woman stabs a towering enemy, spraying blood. Afterward, the lone swordsman stands over the corpses, gripping his weapon. A wary interrogator confronts the masked intruder, demanding answers at spear point. The masked figure suddenly freezes at something unexpected. A trembling man grips his sheathed weapon, bracing for conflict. At the chaos's center, a young swordsman unleashes a spiraling energy attack. The battered fighter collapses, unconscious from his injuries. The masked onlooker dismisses the fallen man as useless. Finally, red-eyed figures rise from the water and advance toward shore. Menacing shark monsters armed with brutal weapons emerge from the dark water. The masked man grows irritated by this unexpected setback. The determined fighter assumes a battle stance in the dark cave, gripping her electrified spear as tension fills the air. The figure assesses the looming threat as energy crackles from the high-tech mask. Meanwhile, the leader surveys everything with calm authority. The young man focuses, drawing out his hidden power. Suddenly, the masked warrior unleashes purple lightning with his spear. Surging energy violently shatters the towering stone columns, flooding the area with chaotic force. Elsewhere, 4 armored fighters face a towering blue barrier. 3 armored allies discuss why their leader is still missing. One youth wonders if he could ever be that brave. A swirling portal bursts open as the leader prepares to emerge. The masked figure drags a limp body through the portal. A wary squad confronts the silent newcomer as he emerges from the portal, tension crackling in the air. A vast frontline camp houses thousands of prepared soldiers. A modern hospital stands beneath the sunlight, emphasizing that, despite professional integration, trained doctors remain essential for healing and saving lives. An unconscious patient lies in bed while staff examine injuries. The medical expert, reviewing the patient's file, remarks on the unprecedented speed and extent of recovery despite severe internal injuries. Nearby, a girl sits unsettled by the power she saw. The burned boy rests as tests show faint, harmless radiation. The doctor offers a special ward promising fast recovery. A commanding figure tells the woman to bring the patient back from the hospital immediately. At the military encampment, the imposing supreme commander makes his entrance, radiating authority. In a bare room, a guarded man confronts 2 officials. A sprawling command post stands prominently beneath the clear sky, marking the location of a military base. A government rescue team arrives in the city to handle the disaster's aftermath. Despite casualties, the Federation's joint effort finally ended the catastrophe. A somber memorial screen displays portraits of 6 fallen soldiers as the crowd honors their sacrifice. A digital screen displays the image of a stern older man. The man informs the woman that her comrade died honorably. She sits by the bed, murmuring while he watches silently. The mentor declines media interviews to protect the recovering student's privacy. An elder defends the father's choice and urges the listener to stop blaming him. He explains that the true burden was always the listener's own guilt. A solemn figure enters the hospital room, approaching the anxious woman seated by the bedside. Leaning on a cane, he urges them to question the survivor later. The speaker observes with intrigue, commenting on the remarkable ability to control the sword. Meanwhile, the patient lies unconscious while a strange sword stands beside the bed. A worried disciple presses her mentor about the sword and the stranger. At the doorway, an anxious watcher listens to violent coughing inside. A worried guardian stands beside the hospital bed, watching the injured patient. A caretaker sits by the bed, waiting for the unconscious patient to wake. The young man freezes in shock as the girl suddenly presses her lips against his. Afterward, the youth reels in disbelief, struggling to process what happened. The injured man jolts awake in bed and warily scans the room. Hearing a sound, the woman snaps her gaze up, instantly alert. A gloved fighter blocks a fast strike with a sturdy staff. A hostile intruder storms into the room with a weapon but finds the bed empty. Then the observer tenses, realizing for the first time there is a real threat. Meanwhile, the wounded patient awakens, eyes resolute despite fresh scars. The patient is declared stable enough for the 4-bag to be removed. One patient sits up and asks the guard, who explains this place is Camp N3. Later, the wary patient sits up, trading tense introductions with the armed woman. The tired patient stays seated while a silent watcher grips a spear nearby. 2 onlookers watch a report condemning the masked figure's disappearance as reckless and ungrateful. A stern broadcaster criticizes the masked figure for failing to answer the disaster. A calm observer studies the rising tension while the patient listens silently. However, the critic argues all burdens fall on the masked figure as the patient listens. The commander warns the newcomer, setting strict conditions for staying in the camp. Finally, the cold challenger threatens to break her opponent's bones despite admitting their strength. An armed visitor confronts the wary patient on the bed, demanding an explanation. The wounded challenger declares that no one can defeat him. An irritated girl clenches her jaw, holding back her anger. The assertive opponent responds confidently, confirming they will fight again someday. The spear-wielding figure strides out with determination, leaving the silent patient behind to pursue the next secret realm. Armed subordinates confront their superior, demanding why the mysterious man is taken to headquarters. Later, 5 officers hurry down an empty corridor, questioning the newcomer's background and link to command. The men pause as one recalls the name, realizing it carries weight. One anxious subordinate warns that the leader's anger is about to explode. The wary figure steps out of the room as two onlookers watch him closely from the hallway. The weakened newcomer enters the hallway and is stopped by several men demanding his purpose. The weakened youth insists on entering the secret realm, and another calls him crazy. Clutching his chest, he endures a glowing heart's transformation to survive. The survivor explains he can absorb monsters' life force to heal his wounds. A worried ally warns that entering the secret realm alone is impossible. The authoritative youth orders the group to release their captive, arguing that accepting help in navigating the secret realms is a rare and valuable opportunity. A cloaked superior strides into a hallway, immediately drawing the group's uneasy attention. The older man surveys the situation with a confident, knowing gaze. Then, the principled youth challenges the elder, arguing compassion should override strict rules. The leader stands firm, declaring his command over the camp and demanding obedience. 4 men shout forced agreement before the curtain. Meanwhile, an armed figure walks down the hallway flanked. An older leader confronts the tense newcomer, gripping his cane. The cloaked man splits the squad between escorting and guarding. The lone fighter steps forward, readying a glowing weapon to fight. Soon, another figure appears with a smoking, glowing spear. 2 soldiers rush to their officer, asking about missing teammates. Outside the building, a trio of soldiers quietly speculate about the newcomer's suspicious sway over their superior, noting how unusual it is for the commander to bend the rules. One figure harshly criticizes the other's reckless plan to enter a secret realm right after waking, warning that anyone who follows will suffer the consequences. A woman stares ahead, silently gauging the room's tension. The armored spear-bearer warns the group to stay cautious of hidden motives. The skeptical subordinate questions the leader's judgment, while they walk beneath the looming industrial structure. The squad talks about their captain's lightning powers and fast promotion. One of the men questions his companion about his relationship with the Supreme Commander and the unusual privileges they have received. The aloof officer denies any connections, leaving his companion skeptical. However, the skeptic mocks his friend's chances of meeting the commander. 3 armed travelers march, trading tales of the Supreme Commander's power. At camp, a proud fighter hails a powerful ally tied to the commander. A stern veteran explains these frontlines honor a disbanded army from that decisive duel. Alone, a fighter rests against rock, recalling a past battle with monsters. A commander leads 3,000 soldiers to reclaim abandoned frontlines. Monsters attack from all sides, overwhelming the human defenders. However, the remaining fighters hold their position despite heavy losses. Across the scorched land, the surviving army established fortified bases that expanded into thriving camps, marking the new frontlines in the war against monsters. 3 figures advance cautiously toward the swirling blue portal looming in the rocky terrain. Armed allies swear to follow their leader into the secret realm. The injured man demands to know if the offer is genuine. Instead, he steps forward alone, refusing the guard's assistance. The traveler emerges from the portal, prepared for whatever awaits ahead. He surveys the monster-infested forest, eager to hunt. Clutching his chest, the lone figure unleashes a surge of dark energy as the atmosphere grows heavier. The transformed fighter erupts with chaotic, uncontrollable power. A hulking beast lunges forward to strike. A pack of demonic wolves burst from the shadows, launching a ferocious attack. An armored intruder approaches, making the hidden beasts tense. Meanwhile, the transformed warrior counts seconds until his power ends. He realizes his monstrous form can last only 3 minutes. A young fighter activates his power, causing a red mark to glow. A lone figure bursts forward from the shadows, charging at the startled enemies in the dark forest. Surging dark energy slaughters the charging multi-headed wolf monsters. Monstrous wolves are impaled by sharp, claw-like spikes. Now the clearing is strewn with monstrous wolf corpses. Around them lie slain beasts, a decapitated monster at center. Further on, beheaded monster remains lie scattered across the ground. Dark energy floods the forest, making shadows writhe unnaturally. An armored warrior stands alone while mystical energy surges. A monstrous entity absorbs nearby life force, pulsing with dark power. Bathed in the glowing heart, the wounded monster rapidly heals and strengthens. 2 figures pause at the portal, speculating whether the one who entered before them is still alive inside the secret realm. 2 armored allies suspect their associate waits by the portal to exit. Suddenly, a massive energy surge erupts, engulfing the area. A newcomer descends wreathed in energy, drawing every onlooker's gaze. The 2 soldiers worry because someone exited the secret realm early. The confident warrior declares the realm boss defeated, shocking the armored pair. Later, the lone survivor reflects uneasily on how weak the realm's foes were. He hands over 2 fang drops, saying they suit arrowcraft better than blades. 2 stunned soldiers learn the newcomer cleared the secret realm in 17 minutes. The observer estimates that the newcomer's strength easily surpasses that of the previous leader. The party heads to the next realm, eyeing the leading fighter warily. Finally, the leader signals the next fighter to approach the glowing portal. 3 armed figures brace as the next advances to the portal. A stern voice calls for the next contender as 3 figures stand tense before the swirling portal. A cautious figure crouches to inspect the unusual footprint pressed deeply into the earth. Soon, they realize the array failed and the treasures are gone. The trio sees fresh tracks, confirming their quarry just cleared this realm. 3 soldiers doubt their own team could clear the realm so fast. Therefore, The tracker concludes another squad raided the realm's resources. Their leader orders a return, deciding outside assistance will benefit them. Privately, she vows to punish whoever challenged her authority. After each expedition, teams report results for merit points exchangeable for rewards like exclusive combat training. A determined group strides into the facility while a lone figure observes from outside. The white-haired onlooker is shocked they cleared 17 secret realms today. At the counter, an officer presents a list, urging confirmation the realm's energies vanished. The suited official demands proof this same group cleared those realms. A massive crash reveals a trove of sparkling gems, strange relics, and bones scattered across the ground. An annoyed visitor dumps rare monster parts, ordering staff to verify them. The clerk stammers, barely believing the visitor achieved all this. Next, an agent presents a scarred elite who completed a secret mission alone. The worried manager assigns them a deadly realm mission, citing heavy casualties and urgent need. Finally, their captain accepts the mission while an armed teammate stands guard. A bald soldier claims the older fighter is stronger than the captain. A suited man warns the armored fighter about an enemy approaching from behind. The calm figure demands to know what danger lurks behind as the anxious opponent hesitates. The armored team faces their returning superior, hurriedly justifying earlier remarks about the gems. A subordinate submits a list showing marked secret realms match their previous locations. A skeptic asks if he caused all the destruction and receives calm confirmation. A determined woman questions the other's confidence in front of everyone. An annoyed man asks why his rival clings to past grudges. The confident woman steps forward, announcing her decision to accept the perilous 6th-rank secret realm mission in front of the others. Then, an armored challenger proposes a race to defeat the secret realm boss. 3 armed watchers observe 4 figures heading toward the glowing exit. An older operative is credited with provoking the leader's competitive drive over a document. Then, he reads the document and realizes why he was summoned to the front lines. The lone survivor recalls a critical event that unfolded on the front lines after the catastrophic incident in a former life. The focused figure examines a crucial document, while a wary observer studies his every move. The wary onlooker recognizes the man by the distinctive weapon at his side. The bearded fighter in gear suddenly realizes who the man actually is. Meanwhile, a large command center appears, signaling a shift to a new location. At a desk, an officer asks if the river survivor caused the Day City massacre. The subordinate snaps to attention and confirms the command issued by the superior. The man behind the desk listens intently as his visitor lays out suspicions about the newcomer whose appearance and weapon match those of a known criminal. The armored figure concludes the escaped prisoner and culprit are the same. The bearded observer accepts this unlikely link while reviewing frontline events. Across the desk, the subordinate plans to investigate before joining the secret realm mission. Meanwhile, the scheming hunter prepares to expose the target for credit. A shimmering portal bursts open on the field as several indistinct shapes step through. The squad surrounds their leader, demanding to join the upcoming mission. The masked woman dismisses them and insists on entering the deadly realm alone. The spear-wielding leader moves into the terrain while 3 allies watch. The masked leader orders the armored team to advance across the field. The challenger declares the fight will be one-on-one with no interference. Afterward, the battered fighter stops under the sky, silently reflecting. The sky stretches overhead, calm and bright, signaling a new moment in the story. The lone figure steps forward, confronting the swirling blue portal that dominates the open plain. An anxious soldier questions why the Supreme Commander still has not arrived. The resolute figure steps alone into the swirling portal, determined to face whatever awaits beyond. Moments later, a fading energy blast dissipates over the empty field. A 6-person team, led by a white-haired mage, advances into the dark tunnel. One member releases supernatural energy, lighting the tunnel with glowing hands. The scout checks the area and confirms there are no threats. 2 armored scouts note they cannot escape a group attack here. Soon, thick mist fills the tunnel, warning of approaching danger. A squad of fighters braces in the tunnel, one gripping a glowing staff. A swarm of red-eyed monsters pours from the tunnel's darkness. The group tenses up as they confront a staggering number of monsters, realizing the peril of this 6th-rank secret realm. Spiked mutant crocodiles stampede in, further swelling the monster threat. The confident figure advances as waves of purple energy surge ominously around him. Next, the leader thrusts a crackling spear as the squad prepares to strike. A towering 3-headed beast charges forward with gaping jaws. A mage channels purple power through a staff, readying a blast. Wreathed in purple energy, he orders the group to advance. A spear-wielding warrior lunges, discharging purple lightning at the oncoming beasts. Suddenly, a massive pillar of purple energy erupts, engulfing the area. A shadowy figure descends as a surge of purple energy erupts violently around them. Chaotic energy bursts out, covering everything in dense purple smoke. A masked swordsman advances, brandishing a glowing blade and crackling aura. Several cloaked figures move cautiously through a tunnel charged with purple power. Afterward, one overwhelming strike obliterates the monster horde, astonishing the watcher. The team pushes on, discussing the monster's formation and planning their strategy. 2 men in tactical gear quietly assess their chances against the relentless squad leader as tension fills the tunnel. An injured survivor questions the purpose of continuing the competition. Meanwhile, a group emerges from the shadows, advancing through the tunnel. The party moves cautiously, noticing no monsters after the earlier attack. Suddenly, the leading fighter halts, sensing something ahead. Their leader raises a glowing weapon as everyone prepares for battle. Elsewhere, a masked scout wonders why no missing teams appear. 2 teammates speculate earlier victims and their gear were obliterated. 3 figures in tactical gear pause and scan their surroundings, on high alert for any signs of danger. 3 tense sentinels scan their surroundings, bracing for any unseen danger. Armored allies brace as their captain levels a glowing spear. In response, oppressive silence fills the darkened tunnel. Suddenly, dark energy erupts, flooding the tunnel with choking smoke. A monstrous figure lunges forward, jaws agape and eyes blazing with fury. The creature's blow shatters the mountainside, hurling debris everywhere. 2 armored fighters stagger back as the beast blocks their only exit. A masked observer notes their terror, confused by their extreme fear. Nonetheless, the masked fighter steadies herself, ready to engage it. The terrifying creature surges forward to renew its assault. The masked warrior blocks the strike with a burst of purple energy. Then the spear wielder charges, releasing purple energy in a decisive blow. The swordsman scans the corridor, gripping his sword tightly. Then the warrior raises his battered sword, prepared to fight. He smashes his blade into the ground, triggering a violent shockwave. The monstrous figure unleashes a surge of purple energy from its gaping jaws. Empowered by purple energy, the fighter hammers the giant monster's head. Meanwhile, a masked attacker charges forward, launching a purple energy assault. The energized warrior faces the wounded beast as the others keep back. The swordsman again drives his sword into the ground, sending cracks outward. A massive weapon crashes down, hurling debris across the area. Seizing the opening, the fighter leaps and fatally strikes the monster's head. The dying beast glares fiercely as blood continues to spray. A resolute warrior stands before the massive, wounded head, ready to finish it. Privately, the strategist regrets missing his chance to seize everything. The group realizes a second underground monster used the earlier attack as a diversion. Afterward, 2 battered survivors rest, safe after defeating the underground threat. Their leader atop the fallen beast asks how they detected the underground monster. The masked fighter admits the team would have died without crucial backup. Cautiously scanning the cavern, the staff user explains how he sensed the threat below. One wary survivor doubts anyone could really pinpoint the monster's weak spot. Finally, an uneasy member pauses, scanning behind for any remaining threats. A scout analyzes strange underground vibrations, trying to interpret them. The group surveys the fallen boss, noting how quickly it died. The masked fighter declares these monsters are not the real bosses. The menacing beast looms as the absence of the secret realm's treasure chest raises suspicion. A masked scout urgently reports the teleportation array still does not work. 2 armored allies suspect an even stronger enemy remains hidden. The party stands tensely before the colossal corpse of the supposed boss. The vigilant survivor issues a warning to his companion while standing atop the bloodied remains of the monstrous foe. The anxious soldier reports another issue to the captain as the group stands tensely together. The silver-haired ally steadies his spear, promising to support everyone ahead. 4 soldiers enthusiastically greet their approaching superior officer. A heavy metal door looms ahead, blocking the only way forward. The cautious leader and the tense group pause before the ominous door, sensing danger ahead. The commander orders 2 inside to infiltrate while armored troops wait outside. One spearman steps up, asking the leader to stay safe outside. Urgently, a teammate strains to turn the rusted wheel. The same figure finally forces the corroded valve to move. 2 guards brace on opposite sides of the sealed doorway, weapons ready. Suddenly, an explosion of smoke engulfs the area, obscuring everything. 2 armed intruders cautiously move into the smoky chamber, while a swift silhouette launches overhead. 2 shadowy figures enter the smoke-filled room. Then a sealed metal door explodes open, scattering debris. The pair advance cautiously down the dim corridor, weapons at the ready and senses heightened for any threat. A massive claw slams into the floor, revealing a threat. Meanwhile, the watchful figure senses a light-footed presence nearby. A towering reptilian creature bursts out, dominating the area. The masked observer realizes a humanoid monster threatens the secret realm. Ahead, a hulking beast blocks the trail before the advancing pair. The hulking beast suddenly charges, launching a savage attack. The wary fighter braces for impact as overwhelming power gathers. Suddenly the attacker lunges forward, wrapped in crackling purple aura. The determined combatant dives downward, firing a powerful energy blast. A crackling black spear plummets, radiating sinister purple energy. There the tactician notes the spear's speed will impale any biting creature. An armored fighter smashes an energy-charged fist down, shattering the ground. The masked warrior steadies herself, preparing to confront the enemy. An armored beast charges and slams the silver-haired warrior down, disarming him. Afterward, the masked figure endures the shock of a sudden explosion. A resolute fighter raises a crackling energy weapon to strike. Finally, the young fighter crashes down, unleashing purple energy at the monster. Energy explodes from the device, flooding the area with light. A monstrous creature bursts from the light, launching a ferocious attack. The beast blasts the fallen man with electricity, pinning him. The monster pins the struggling woman, pressing its flaming weapon down. A young man confronts a spear wielder and a beast blocking the street. The steadfast fighter defends his high-risk tactics as his skeptical companion questions the need to endanger oneself for victory. A tactician is surprised when her stoic partner unexpectedly agrees with her. A masked watcher fixes on his target, ready to act. Afterward, the monstrous foe lies dead in a spreading pool of blood. A giant beast bites the struggling man, pinning him to the ground. An investigator inspects the mutated corpse while another wonders how their missing ally became this. A masked woman scans the bizarre realm, growing more suspicious of it. Soon, a wary fighter faces a pack of wolf-like monsters emerging from darkness. Two fighters divide the enemies, preparing to attack from opposite sides. A two-headed crocodile charges into view, its red eyes locked ahead. A pursuer chases the masked figure through the tunnel, weapon crackling with purple energy. Then, a white-haired attacker launches upward, spear blazing with purple energy. A lone fighter unleashes purple energy, blasting through the reptilian ranks. A massive energy wave erupts and blasts forward with crushing force. Finally, a resolute warrior sweeps out an electric strike, felling several reptiles. A monstrous reptile lunges as the masked warrior counters with his spear. A massive reptilian limb crashes down, instantly shattering the metal barrier. The white-haired fighter unleashes a powerful blast of dark lightning. Then the fighter fires a concentrated purple energy wave at it. The colossal reptilian beast lies motionless, its massive form brutally severed in two. Afterward, the masked man notes its improved strength and speed after transforming. The operative concludes these monsters are mindless and therefore not truly dangerous. Suddenly, the wary woman snaps around, sensing an incoming attack. The determined warrior severs the monster's head with a swift, decisive strike. The young swordsman blocks the lunging reptile with his blade. He then slashes upward, wounding the towering reptilian beast. The fighter narrows his eyes, steeling himself for the coming battle. The determined fighter cuts down another monster, blood spraying around him. Two survivors stand amid the slain beasts as fresh enemies close in. One agent reports the current attackers are the same professionals from the prior raid. The masked ally hesitates, admitting he still does not understand. The vigilant youth scans his surroundings, ready to respond to any danger. Two monstrous sentinels stand watch over a massive ancient sword monument in the underground chamber. Two lizard-like guards block the tunnel before a massive carved stone pillar. Suddenly, two crocodile-headed beasts with blazing eyes leap to attack. Two reptilian beings kneel in submission before the imposing totem. A cautious soldier questions the enemy's motives after noticing the altar. A sealed pillar in the chamber radiates intense red energy. Suddenly, pink energy erupts from the pillar, flooding the cavern. The masked fighter freezes in shock at the sudden development. Meanwhile, the masked operative struggles under crushing pressure from an unseen watcher. The resolute figure unleashes a destructive surge of purple energy across the ground to halt the dangerous ritual. The monstrous beast surges with dark energy, unleashing a menacing roar as its power intensifies. The massive beast collapses as crackling purple energy engulfs it. A glowing pillar erupts, briefly revealing a powerful artifact. Sinister glowing eyes appear in the darkness, heralding a new threat. A shadowy figure fixes a menacing glare into the darkness, preparing to strike. A hulking beast crouches under a downpour of sinister red energy. Elsewhere, an armed duo question the enemy while sensing a watching presence. The survivor realizes the void entity has chosen him as its only target. A man hints at shared history with his wary companion. Later, three travelers cautiously approach glowing blue portals in a clearing. Two figures in military gear emerge from glowing portals as onlookers observe their arrival. The group discuss how the captain and veteran quickly defeated the secret realm boss. Their armored leader ends discussion, ordering a return to camp to report news. Soldiers gather quietly, preparing for the approaching battle. Then a lone man steps out, ending their search. Several troops tense as a pale-haired spear wielder slowly approaches. A subordinate urgently calls out to the highest-ranking officer, drawing attention. The commander strides to the front, leading a decisive advance. A nervous aide asks about bringing the law enforcement team. The suited leader dismisses their worries while his guard watches. Meanwhile, a tense youth grips his sword, awaiting the stranger's words. The stern figure levels a grave accusation, linking the other to the Day City massacre. The wary man steels himself against the surrounding armed squad. The group of soldiers exchanges uneasy doubts about the suspected figure's true identity and motives. Next, the armored leader points and declares him culprit for recent incidents. A female operative steps up and confronts the masked suspect. The resolute figure accepts the grim reality as debris falls around him. The newcomer steps forward, declaring his identity with unwavering determination. A bearded agent confirms the target's identity matched prior analysis. The defiant youth asks the cloaked man if he'll be taken away. In response, an official declares fugitives will be sent to atonement camp. The serious man abruptly interrupts, signaling a crucial revelation. Finally, he disputes any link to Camp N3, invoking federal law. Suddenly, an armed squad appears behind the old man. The older man evaluates the other's decision as reasonable, while both sides brace for the next move. The elder admits he might have acted the same way. Meanwhile, the young man wishes everyone shared his ally's virtues. The stern figure delivers a strict order, forbidding any mention of today's events after returning to camp. Thus, he warns that disobeyers will be expelled from camp. Both groups face off in a tense pending confrontation. A masked man steps forward and requests to speak with the elder. Several soldiers observe as two uneasy figures, recently returned from the secret realm, walk away across the field. A cautious observer watches the intimidating man from a safe distance. The masked one asks the elder about the altar and monster worship. The solemn figure announces the existence of a monster god, casting a heavy tension over the scene. A young woman doubts that monsters could really have a god. The mentor, standing on the grassy plain, challenges the listener with a pointed question about why humanity has never broken through the front lines despite countless teams clearing secret realms every year. The blonde-haired man reveals a crucial reason behind recent events, his tone grave as he hints at a deeper secret. So, he vows to end the war by striking the monster's source. A man in a suit demands explanations about this looming threat. The elder explains the secret realms come from the monster god linked to that altar. Monster god's overwhelming presence shapes the world and spawns secret realms near front lines. Finally, the masked man realizes humanity is tiny before such power. He explains only one person can truly kill monster gods despite past victories. The woman in gear urgently shouts for someone to bring a mask. The mentor warns that finding an altar means a monster uprising and a powerful awakening. He imagines monsters soon flooding out of secret realms and overwhelming the front lines. The masked woman recalls heavy losses and fears worse now that their key fighter is gone. The leader stops secret realm exploration and sends urgent warnings to other camps about rising monsters. The blonde advisor suggests using the trip as a rare chance to rest. In the field, the masked subordinate hesitates before uncertainly addressing her superior. The cloaked leader orders the team to bring their reserved comrade on the letter mission. The leader instructs the trusted ally to hide his appearance while traveling with them. Then the leader firmly orders a mask to be prepared for the newcomer. A barren desert stretches under dust, showing nothing but emptiness ahead. Suddenly, a gigantic spinning blade rips through the ground, hurling debris everywhere. A massive armored train crashes down, throwing dust and debris in every direction. Nearby, one armed guard keeps watch while the rest lounge around playing cards. A lone watcher waits silently against the wall, remaining tense and alert. Inside, a guard boasts about the armored train while passengers take their seats. Another crew member insists the trains are vital, claiming they can reliably cross any terrain. 3 armed soldiers gripe about boredom as they sit together playing cards. One traveler studies his cards, estimating their arrival and questioning the need for old-fashioned letters. The uniformed man hands over the secret files while the seated figure doubts the necessity of using humans for such a risky delivery. Suddenly, 3 soldiers stop playing as a loud noise echoes inside. 2 soldiers inside the vehicle react with alarm as someone descends the ladder from above. Someone reports a fast-moving jeep approaching in the distance. A relentless figure unleashes a barrage of gunfire from behind cover with a heavy machine gun. Meanwhile, an observer in the truck criticizes the army's slow reaction to escaping monsters. When realms stay uncleared, escaping monsters quickly collapse human civilization. A military vehicle races across the desert, fleeing at high speed. An archer balances on the jeep roof, drawing a black bow to aim. A charging beast drops dead as a spear pierces its skull. 2 glowing-eyed beasts lunge forward to attack. A worn-out fighter curses officials, claiming to have killed many escaped monsters. However, the archer realizes his quiver is empty mid-battle. Another combatant inside a speeding vehicle quickly aims a black bow at danger. A red-eyed monster charges straight at the armored warrior. A fiery projectile hurtles forward, ripping through everything in its path. Finally, a lone warrior unleashes a devastating strike on the towering monster. A uniformed messenger urgently announces that reinforcements are approaching. A passenger points out a massive armored train beside the speeding jeep. A concealed shooter opens fire from the window. A speeding vehicle races forward while bullets strike the ground around it. Another military truck full of soldiers charges through the dust at high speed. A nervous soldier looks upward, unsure what the enemy will do. Suddenly, a beast lunges forward, preparing to strike. A giant energy-wreathed bird dives from the sky toward the ground. A monstrous bird creature ambushes the military jeep, hurling it violently into the air. A fighter watches as the massive winged beast crashes down, badly wounded. The injured bird looms over the wrecked vehicle amid drifting smoke. 3 armed troops carefully step out of a concealed military vehicle onto the sand. Inside, a wary survivor realizes unexpected allies have arrived. Elsewhere, a colossal structure slams into the ground, throwing up clouds of dust. A window explodes outward, spraying glass and debris. A squad sprints across the sand toward the rising dust cloud. A panicked soldier warns others to stay back from the overwhelming enemy. Suddenly, a uniformed guard senses an unseen threat. A lone fighter releases purple energy, annihilating the wolves ahead. The defenders launch heavy attacks, quickly overwhelming the remaining wolves. The spearman charges and fires purple energy into 3 lunging wolf monsters. An attacker delivers a brutal slash, spraying debris and blood. Finally, a soldier warns that the real danger is the 2 enemy leaders. A monster is blasted back by a sudden surge of purple energy. The masked leader orders the team to treat wounded and gather battlefield resources. A determined survivor answers orders while the group surveys the bloody aftermath of their battle against the wolves. A rescuer holding a bloodied monster watches 3 exhausted soldiers approach, one limping. An armored interrogator demands to know how their group's origin was discovered. Several soldiers discuss the masked captain's fearsome reputation and openly acknowledge her power. One soldier says the newcomer rivals the captain, shocking others since no one else matches her. An anxious soldier hesitates, struggling to identify someone during the tense exchange. A newcomer is introduced to the group at the army camp as two soldiers welcome him under the open sky. A scarred veteran predicts the newcomer will soon rival the fame of their superior. Two battered squads meet among monster corpses while survivors explain the disastrous fight and heavy losses. Meanwhile, a uniformed officer shouts about secret realm breaches and fears for other teams. Elsewhere, officers in tactical gear discuss more secret realms breaking and monsters already escaping. A wary survivor scans the horizon, realizing the threat grows as they pass the 5th camp. Soon, the masked leader orders the group to hurry toward the army camp. The heavily fortified military base slowly appears through the desert haze. On a rooftop, 2 sentinels scan the area, one using binoculars. 2 sentries notice far fewer teams returning than leaving recently, growing suspicious. 2 guards quietly discuss their rising workload from secret realm missions while keeping watch. Suddenly, a startled scout peers through binoculars and spots something unusual. 2 soldiers ready registration as an armored train from another camp approaches. A uniformed worker waves red flags, ordering the train to slow and stop. A stunned sentry recalls an alarm as chaos erupts. A massive monument crashes down, hurling debris across the area. Massive rocks and debris blast outward as a powerful explosion rips through the dust-filled air. The shattered monument collapses completely, throwing dust and rubble everywhere. A squad advances through the wreckage, carefully scanning the ruins for threats. Nearby, a sealed hatch blasts open, revealing a dark shaft below. The open hatch releases a surge of strange energy into the swirling dust. 3 armed soldiers freeze when they find a motionless body on the ground. The dead fighter still grips a bloody knife, showing he was a dangerous professional. The squad braces as a massive armored enemy steps out of the swirling wreckage. A monstrous attacker bursts through the dust, terrifying everyone nearby. After the impact, debris and smoke engulf the ruined room. Dark shapes crash through a broken window, scattering debris across the room. A horde of monstrous insects surges forward, overwhelming everything ahead. Giant insect creatures ambush the soldiers, throwing the area into chaos. In panic, a defender unleashes gunfire at the advancing insect horde. Explosions ignite the swarm, filling the air with fire and blood. Soon, insect swarms descend on the burning city, spreading destruction and panic. Giant insects overrun the ruined city, causing widespread destruction. A monstrous insect figure summons a vast swarm that engulfs the blazing horizon. Soon, a colossal insectoid emerges from the smoke, dominating everything. A monstrous insect silently watches the blazing destruction unfold before it. Meanwhile, a lone train races through the desert, trailing smoke. A subordinate reports the camp may be under monster attack. The officer doubts monsters would attack such a strong, well-defended camp. However, the masked woman quietly rejects the optimistic suggestion. She warns that even elite professionals die when surrounded by monsters. Then the masked figure suddenly reacts, realizing imminent danger. A distant fortress burns, sending black smoke into the sky. Armed travelers tensely watch through the window, spotting the distant camp. A military radio blares an urgent distress call as the camp is overrun by monsters. Another broadcast crackles, urgently requesting immediate emergency support. The soldiers reel as they hear the commander died and camp fell. Behind the barrier, an explosion erupts, engulfing everything in flames. A devastating explosion erupts, engulfing the area in fire and smoke. Armored fighters listen grimly as the report of the fallen camp ends. A lone operative freezes, seeing an overwhelming monster horde approaching. Finally, the masked leader orders everyone to advance straight toward the camp. 2 armed allies debate their next move after hearing a nearby camp fell. A figure clenches a gloved fist against the door, overcome by frustration. A furious soldier slams the doorway and vents his frustration about the city's leadership, blaming them for recent chaos. Now he worries the monsters know the masked fighter is gone. 4 troops stand before their superior, waiting for orders. A bald figure in tactical gear attempts to ease the tension by addressing the anxious group in the dimly lit room. Meanwhile, a masked man faces a suspicious squad questioning his identity. Nearby, others watch the masked operative, speculating about who he really is. The bald officer demands the masked fighter confirm who he is. In response, the masked man steps forward and reveals his identity. 4 soldiers tense up as they move into position in the dim corridor. One teammate jokes about getting their masked allies' autograph for younger siblings. The masked woman sizes up her opponent, signaling an impending test. Later, the masked scout watches the smoky scene below, searching for threats. A massive explosion erupts, hurling flames and smoke into the sky. Soon, a gigantic insect swarm descends, blotting out the sky. The masked investigator surveys the ruined camp, blaming the insect swarm. A terrified survivor screams for help as the swarm approaches. A panicked group flees while the swarm engulfs the sky behind them. Finally, a horde of monstrous insects charges the gathered survivors outside the structure. The masked shooter fires a powerful energy blast. A violent surge of purple energy tears through the monstrous insects, decapitating them instantly. The determined fighter channels a surge of purple energy through his staff, preparing to strike. He stomps the ground, sending out shockwaves. The man is struck and staggered by purple energy. Another insect is split apart by purple energy. The energy wave shreds and scatters the green-eyed insects. A violent detonation of purple energy engulfs the area, erasing everything caught in its path. Dark shards fly as purple lightning begins a magical assault. A flock of shadowy birds circles above the devastated field, where glowing insect corpses mark the aftermath of a brutal conflict. Two opposing sides stand ready for battle, each group bracing as the tension mounts on the empty field. The white-haired commander questions rescued survivors about Army Camp M2. A terrified soldier insists the camp is overrun and everyone died. A humanoid insect stands in flames, holding a severed head. A frantic soldier blocks an armed ally from charging ahead. The masked wielder grips a glowing staff, preparing to fight. Suddenly, an enchanted spear flies toward a shocked guard. The masked attacker brandishes a glowing spear, halting the soldiers. Someone explains the approaching group are convicts from an atonement camp. 3 armed soldiers recoil as an unexpected threat appears. 2 armed survivor groups argue over uniting as criminal suspicions fuel their standoff. A masked scout reports the civilian guards have all been killed. The swordsman mishandles both blades and is scolded for his sloppy grip. A determined wielder grips their staff, accepting the cost of taking power from others. A lone fighter raises a curved blade, bracing for the imminent clash. An assailant holds a purple blade to a bearded throat, demanding answers about a bullet wound. 2 heavily armed fighters ready themselves as one raises a purple glowing weapon. Then both armored attackers charge forward, launching a fierce assault. The fighter unleashes a powerful sword strike, energy surging from the blade. With one stroke, the swordsman decapitates both armored foes. A panicked soldier flees while the white-haired warrior advances past 2 fallen enemies. The desperate figure grabs innocent bystanders, using them as shields to secure his own survival. Several onlookers suddenly notice a grisly scene with blood spattered around them. A swift slash beheads a soldier, shocking everyone nearby. A defeated fighter collapses while a staff remains lodged upright in the ground. A wary scout studies unfamiliar figures near camp, suspecting these supposed allies are wrong. The cautious leader decides the group will avoid heading to Army Camp M2 to prevent unnecessary danger. A soldier urgently reports their broiler failed at full speed, jeopardizing the mission. One technician steps forward, offering to inspect the malfunction and help. A dense cloud of smoke suddenly fills the area, obscuring everything from view. The blonde mechanic downplays praise for her fast repair, calling it coincidence. A stern officer demands the 2 startled bystanders introduce themselves outside the building. The blonde newcomer steps forward with a salute, boldly declaring an ambition to become the top mechanic. The armored train surges across the wasteland as its engines roar back to life. After abandoning Camp M2, the group debates attacking Army Camp L4 or Y5. A cautious planner warns the north route is dangerous because of invading monsters. Ultimately, they head toward Army Camp Y5, accepting a longer but safer route. One determined rider insists on reaching the camp while another frets over the train's fuel. Instead, with fuel gone, they decide to risk taking the civilians toward Camp L4. The lone figure sits on the floor, silently reflecting in the dim light. A masked youth bluntly asks why the other is so bent on reaching Camp L4. A suspicious traveler demands to know how the quiet passenger predicted the fuel shortage. Earlier, the same loner surveys a ruined city, remembering failing to save it. The resolute fighter stands over the cautious one, clearly asserting control. A worried ally in the hallway presses for details about who ordered the arrest. An observer calmly vouches for the silent figure waiting in the shadows. Meanwhile, a skeptic gazes out the window, openly questioning the idea of righteousness. A determined fighter locks a sharp, unwavering gaze on a crucial target. A lone rescuer leaps through the smoky night above a burning, collapsing building. Suddenly, a massive insect erupts from the flames as the building collapses. The injured insect-limbed creature collapses in the wreckage. Meanwhile, giant locusts swarm the burning city at night. A massive insect is sliced in half midair. Amid smoldering ruins, the monstrous figure retrieves a scroll from beside the fallen body. An insectoid figure sits hidden, quietly reading a newspaper. A stone-armored being mutters a prophecy about celestial forces. Later, a towering insectoid steps from flames holding a document. A monstrous observer surveys the battlefield through its unblinking, insectoid eye. The monstrous figure glares ahead and utters a cryptic word. A huge insectoid unfurls glowing wings, dominating the darkness. A blinding surge of energy slams into the earth, sending fragments and dust flying in every direction. A vast horde of insects floods the charred landscape. A tense silence fills the dim room as the group gathers, each person weighed down by anxiety. The group's leader calmly assures the anxious companion that their route along the edge of Army Camp M2 is safe and well-guided, minimizing any risk of encountering monsters. The anxious observer scans the horizon as the thickening black smoke signals mounting destruction and uncertainty about the fate of the distant camp. Several tense figures gather in silence, each weighed down by their own thoughts. 2 figures anxiously observe an unusual phenomenon through a narrow opening. A dark swarm of creatures descends over the desolate desert, signaling an ominous threat. A swarm of monstrous insect creatures descends from the sky, initiating their attack. A sharp-eyed subordinate alerts the leader to movement down the corridor. The leader doubts she can keep everyone alive. The lookout spots a menacing shape watching from afar. The defiant captive finds herself reflected in the many green facets of a looming insect eye, under its intense scrutiny. A monster threatens to exterminate all remaining humans. A monstrous claw seizes the giant insect against the shadowy ground. A freshly torn armored limb crashes heavily to the ground. A monstrous figure tears a massive insect in half midair, spraying green fluid everywhere. The monstrous figure singles out humanity as its next target, while its swarm gathers behind it. The monster is flung backward by a crushing strike. A tremendous strike shatters the barrier, hurling fragments outward. Soon a colossal machine slams down, throwing debris and dust everywhere. Several people fall screaming through the air toward the ground. One panicked person is dragged helplessly toward an open hatch. A heavy impact blows apart the metal door, scattering shards inside. A masked assailant suddenly grabs a woman from behind. The resolute youth carries an unconscious companion across the desolate terrain, while a vigilant ally stands watch nearby. The guard steps forward to shield the frightened girl from danger. Later, 3 survivors push through the dust toward the wrecked train. 2 fighters pound the wall, trying desperately to break through. The masked woman shuts her eyes, struggling to withstand the strain. The masked fighter prepares to strike. He stomps the ground, sending cracks outward. A torrent of water crashes along the wall, intensifying the chaos of the night. A woman stares at the toppled armored train. The man in tactical gear reacts in awe as the relieved group gathers tightly together. The leader urgently commands the armed group to defend the train as everyone prepares for an imminent threat. The masked leader commands the engineer to repair the train. The woman in tactical gear insists that saving the armored train takes priority over the lives of civilians as the front lines approach. From a cliff, he claims saving the strong secures humanity's future. A lightning-wreathed spear hurtles downward in a lethal strike. A horde of insects charges forward with the purple lightning. Suddenly, violet-blue energy erupts outward, engulfing the sky. The lone fighter releases a purple wave, erasing the insect swarm. The warrior follows with another purple surge, severing monstrous limbs. The squad gapes as the archer reveals overwhelming power. One soldier notes, even their commander can't match such feats. Later, 3 operatives prepare to move, acknowledging new orders and leadership. A monstrous figure unleashes a barrage of fiery explosions across the desolate battlefield. 2 men spot a dangerous presence outside and react with alarm. Finally, a monstrous insect radiates dark power after its devastating attack. 2 determined figures stand locked in a tense standoff, each gripping their weapon and preparing to strike. A devastating surge of purple energy smashes into the ground, sending debris flying in all directions. The electrified attacker lunges at the monster wreathed in darkness. Then the insectoid enemy erupts with crackling purple energy. The attacker charges, firing a torrent of dark energy. The masked fighter realizes the mantis used an afterimage and vanished. A mysterious figure plummets toward the ground in a sudden, forceful descent. A nearby observer recoils, stunned by the incredible speed. The transformed fighter hurtles forward, launching an energy-charged attack. A massive impact crashes down, shattering the forest clearing. The lone warrior lies stunned in a crater of crackling purple energy. Elsewhere, nearby soldiers shout urgently for their commanding officer. The colossal insect monster hurtles down from above, slamming into the ground with overwhelming force. A glowing clawed arm crashes down, delivering a crushing blow. In response, a massive glowing weapon cleaves through the darkness. The towering insect beast staggers as green energy rips through it. A young woman is slammed violently to the ground. A determined fighter grabs the weapon, ready to continue fighting. The defender lifts his staff and blocks a blinding monstrous blow. A quick-thinking defender intercepts a golden blade with the staff, sending sparks flying. A startled girl freezes as a sharp weapon hovers inches from her forehead. Suddenly, a barrage of deadly projectiles hurtles through the darkness, tearing toward their target with unstoppable force. 2 fighters clash midair, each struggling to overpower. The foe rockets through the forest, shattering trees. Elsewhere, a masked ally shouts toward a distant figure. The swordsman faces the threat alone, ordering his companion to finish remaining monsters. The silver-haired mage warns his ally not to die. A wounded fighter is hurled through trees by a crushing strike. A monstrous claw slams down, pulverizing the ground. A giant enemy rips the earth, sending shockwaves through the forest. Later, a ruined clearing shows the impact's destructive aftermath. A monstrous insectoid looms from the shadows as the lone figure tightens his grip on his weapon. The insect creature confronts the newcomer, remarking on their similar scent. The lone swordsman walks through ruins, questioning if he is monster or human. The resolute figure discards the mask, gripping a sword and walking away, refusing to choose a side. Suddenly, dark energy erupts around the cursed blade. The swordsman releases dark energy, cloaking the battlefield in darkness. Meanwhile, an armored warrior radiates evil power, revealing his monstrous transformation. A figure with a demonic arm prepares to release a surge of power toward a looming insectoid adversary in the forest. As the newcomer unleashed a monstrous transformation, dread gripped the insect creature. An unseen presence resolves to make the first move. A hulking armored creature emerges into view. Then a dark-infused monster lunges at an unflinching armored defender. The armored insect swings a massive fist, starting their clash. The white-haired fighter reels backward as a brutal punch lands squarely on his face. The resolute figure delivers a devastating blow, sending a shockwave through the ground and leaving a deep crater while the other is overwhelmed by the force. A deafening blast tears through the darkness, hurling smoke and debris across the shattered forest clearing. A monstrous figure steps from the swirling mist, unleashing a threatening presence as crimson slashes pierce the fog. A figure thrusts out a hand, releasing a surge of crackling, ominous energy. The armored figure endures the blow and mocks the attacker's strength with unwavering confidence. A monstrous insectoid adversary emerges, radiating hostile intent. The monstrous insect lashes out with multiple bladed limbs, launching a fierce assault as its opponent braces to meet the attack head-on. A violent explosion tears through the dark forest, sending debris flying in all directions. An armored figure slams a fist down, instantly halting all movement in the room. The armored aggressor steps forward, radiating menace and preparing to strike back. A monstrous creature suddenly emerges, radiating overwhelming menace. A formidable enemy appears in the glowing chamber, exuding an intense and threatening presence. A surge of dark energy erupts violently from one figure's head, sending shockwaves through the scene. The armored figure, engulfed in ominous energy, unleashes a surge of dark power across the area. The defeat of a god-chosen monster is declared, marking a major turning point in the conflict. An armored warrior kills the creature as a demon god is announced. A sinister energy envelopes the weapon as it begins its second evolution. The blade erupts with power, releasing a devastating slash. Suddenly, a giant red eye appears within the shadows. The cursed weapon reveals new power, summoning a swarm of lethal crows. The armored foe tightens his grip, acknowledging his opponent's increased strength. Several figures silently observe the aftermath of a brutal conflict, surrounded by coffins and bloodstains. 2 armored survivors cross the battlefield, confirming clear skies and unharmed train passengers. A worried soldier suggests their missing comrade died distracting the monster. Meanwhile, the white-haired man silently surveys the scene in tense silence. Someone urgently reports an important leader's return, making the armed group tense. The lone figure advances cautiously through the dark forest, weapon at the ready. Still, the wanderer continues through the forest, gripping a battered sword tightly. The swordsman tells his wary comrade the monster is dead. A nervous soldier anxiously reveals that the monster has slain a high-ranking commander, questioning if the listener's rank surpasses the 7th. A colossal, radiant slash carves deep into the earth with overwhelming force. A caretaker bandages a wounded man's arm while 2 injured companions wait nearby. 2 captives sit apart in a dim cell, waiting in tense silence. The armored man expresses thanks for the help received. The masked operative tensely demands to know why the other is grateful. The rescued woman thanks the masked man, but he brushes it off. An armored watcher notes an unnatural power surge, comparing it to a legendary strength mask. A nervous man reports the radio failed, severing contact with the nearby army camp. The masked man confronts him, demanding an explanation for the radio failure. The worried survivor explains all signals are blocked, leaving the group completely isolated. Suddenly, a massive rift splits the ground, further isolating the area. A lone man stops, immediately sensing the sudden disturbance. Then, a new mission appears, ordering extermination of a massive horde for monstrous power. The young man tenses, startled by what suddenly appears ahead. Meanwhile, an armored train speeds through the night toward its destination. A radio crackles with static while a fragmented message barely comes through. Soon, 3 armed survivors tense as an urgent radio message arrives from Army Camp L4. The masked leader confirms the radio malfunction, and his ally urges an immediate response. The blonde operator urgently relays a distress report over the radio from inside the armored vehicle. A military broadcast orders survivors to a nearby camp after another base has fallen. The focus strategist updates the group that less than 3 hours remain until arrival at the next camp, where they can refuel the armored train. A tired survivor assures them they can finally rest safely at the better defended camp. Suddenly, a radio activates and begins transmitting an ominous warning. A tense group halts in the corridor as a crackling intercom urgently warns them not to trust the messages from the army camp. 3 frightened survivors sprint forward, reacting to a suddenly appearing threat. A stunned figure realizes the monsters are imitating humans using radio signals, challenging everything once believed. Soon, a masked watcher grows wary seeing many monsters mimic humans. A gloved operative abruptly grabs the walkie-talkie. The masked interrogator demands answers about the suspicious signals allegedly sent by monsters from the army camp. Meanwhile, a distress call reports the camp destroyed by intelligent monsters. An operative reports 3 elite defenders were killed together. A listener hears a broadcast warning human-like enemies and giving survivor coordinates. A radio call coordinates the armored train's approach to camp. Passengers sit unmoving, ignoring the radio's urgent calls. However, the masked leader halts the squad, questioning the core city's fall. The group suspects the temporary camp is lying about the core camp. A masked scout cautiously surveys the surrounding area. The masked leader asks the radio operator for their opinion. The masked leader urgently forbids going to either location. He insists both possible destinations are deadly traps. Long ago, the demon god made monsters cunning enough to break front lines. Under chosen monster rulers, territories fell as humans were enslaved. The survivor scrutinizes a key detail from memory, realizing the fall of the core camp contradicts what should have happened. A lone swordsman confronts the demon, blaming his absence. Finally, an anxious observer wonders if this changed world brings salvation or ruin. The survivor braces, believing nothing surpasses past destruction. Forced by dwindling fuel, the group moves along the cliff edge toward the temporary campsite. They reach a forest clearing and find a camp with military vehicles. Camp survivors line up to greet the arriving group. Armed camp survivors, coerced by monsters, prepare to lure new victims. Before the enemies could react, the swordsman annihilated them all with a swift barrage of energy slashes. Although the camp falls, the merchant grieves companions killed before rescue. The survivor documents mounting anxiety over the uncertain fate of the main army camp and reflects on the group's decision to move toward stronger defenses after retrieving supplies. A masked reader hides in shadow, intensely studying a strange book. Afterward, the masked woman steels herself to confront the coming threat. Two tired allies review how coordinated monster attacks cut communications and doomed multiple camps. The same pair urgently debate the growing intelligence and strategy of recent monsters. The masked observer explains a unique monster that copies human tactics to exterminate humanity. A hooded comrade adds that this foe never revealed its true form, even in battle. The two quietly recall the knife's origin and the absent friend who gifted it. Alone, one fighter hides a deadly secret and fears losing a trusted ally. He cradles a dead comrade by the flames, raging at the betrayer. The lone observer stares ahead, wrestling with thoughts that spiral into unanswerable questions. A devastating surge erupts, engulfing the area in chaos. The leader rushes over as a subordinate urgently demands attention to something happening outside. The observer scans the area through binoculars from behind cover, fully alert and ready for action. Suddenly, the ground splits open, hurling dust into the air. A giant beast erupts from the dust, surrounded by smaller monsters. Winged monsters swarm into the sky, darkening the battlefield. Meanwhile, two observers in an armored vehicle see monsters heading toward the camp. A nervous scout points out military vehicles approaching in the distance. A column of armored vehicles advances rapidly through the battlefield. Then, armored vehicles fire a barrage of missiles while advancing. Several fighters are engulfed by a powerful explosion amid-case. Explosions tear through the sky as winged attackers launch an assault. From behind cover, the observer analyzes the enemy's strategy and anticipates the monster's defeat. A spear hurtles across the dusty ground with deadly force. A soldier in tactical gear waves to approaching armored allies. A uniformed officer announces to the crowd they arrived from a military camp. A rifle rises into view, signaling an imminent attack. Armed soldiers aim rifles from a vehicle, forcing everyone to stop. Inside, the armored group enters a dark room and recoils at something unexpected. An armed leader stands between two soldiers, ready for confrontation. The armed captor cuts off a plea, threatening execution for betrayal. Finally, guards accuse the newcomers of aiding monsters as one desperately claims misunderstanding. The speaker assures his companion he recognizes him, while a wounded enemy still threatens nearby. The battered survivor stands outside alone, steadying himself after the battle. The former prison facility now holds alleged traitors behind heavy defenses. Inside the fences, all newcomers are detained as suspected traitors without proof. The reserved man briefly acknowledges the other's suffering. The strategist explains Camp N3 was evacuated and trapped to slow advancing monsters. Now, a masked operative realizes abandoning human cities means the crisis has become catastrophic. In the corridor, one detainee accepts quarantine as necessary after traitors doomed several camps. From behind bars, the prisoner asks why smarter monsters are devastating the front lines. The speaker links these monster changes to monster gods and implies the listener knows something. A guard says investigators will review him before assigning duties, given the manpower shortage. A desperate captive grips the prison bars as a silent figure turns away outside the cell. Then the masked figure hesitates and hints he holds the solution. The masked woman scans the area, staying alert for threats. Meanwhile, two armed allies pore over a map, planning their next operation. The tacticians debate if the hot spring marks an extinct volcano near camp. Elsewhere, a brooding man sits alone, lost in troubled thoughts. Two officers watch an emergency broadcast about unprecedented monsters and incoming supplies and reinforcements. At the podium, a senior official assures troops the Federation is ready for the assault. Finally, a masked observer notes powerful 8th-rank reinforcements arriving on the battlefield. Two detained soldiers are released to command frontline squadrons. Meanwhile, an armed leader prepares to spearhead an imminent assault. A stern figure presents two black weapons for inspection, prompting the newcomer to verify them. Nearby, a lone operative questions sending untested soldiers to the front lines. The masked agent seeks support and is sent to identify a group. Two inmates confront a threatening figure at the fence. Two armed guards brace to confront the approaching prisoners. Two operatives arrive at Redemption Camp to command the gathered prisoners. The masked woman criticizes the camp's poor combat readiness. An anxious youth clutches walkie-talkies, trying to avoid suspicion. A soldier hands out communicators to the armed group, explaining their range and function as one member voices uncertainty. The masked newcomer receives command authority and a map for safer routes. A scout reports monsters massing their assault on the northwest perimeter. The leader firmly announces their destination as one companion looks on in shock. Still confused, the anxious youth demands to know their destination. An older survivor warns the region is surrounded and collapsing under monsters. The masked strategist demands maps, mini nukes, and tripwires before proceeding. The group in tactical gear asserts control over the area as their leader issues a decisive command. The anxious figure stands outside the fence, trembling as he confronts the two individuals. A stern superior authorizes the mission supplies and orders the group to join the transport fleet for immediate deployment. Two tacticians examine a plan to force prisoners' obedience through manufactured desperation. The masked strategist warns the plan will get the group annihilated by monsters. Meanwhile, the masked fighter stands ready for the approaching battle. The stern woman warns the two armed figures that the outcome of the conflict depends on their teamwork. 2 hours later, a frightened woman panics, convinced their plan will kill them. A panicked survivor despairs as the group is pushed toward the deadliest frontline. The determined ally urges a hesitant companion to seize this chance near the facility. Then, a resourceful member hands over a device, confirming installation is possible. The leader orders the team to install the devices at marked points on the map. 3 inmates gather, radiating menace as ominous energy churns behind them. A lone fighter advances, gripping his weapon for the coming fight. The resolute figure strides forward, scattering dust with each purposeful step. An imposing guard confronts the cowering inmates while gripping a baton. An enraged inmate cocks his pistol to threaten everyone. The armed prisoner threatens the armored youth, demanding obedience after their uneasy teamwork. The larger figure stands tall and calmly reassures the anxious onlooker who gazes up with hope. Armored attackers present a vile offer as their target stares down silently. A masked scout scans the surroundings, fully prepared for an attack. A surge of purple energy tears across the ground as the observer remains composed on the sidelines. The startled fighter freezes as crackling energy explodes behind him. Startled by something unseen, the man recoils in fear against the ominous backdrop. A masked attacker strikes a restrained captive while a watcher reluctantly approves. A wounded man staggers as uncontrolled purple energy surges around him. The masked attacker impales a wounded enemy with a glowing scythe. 3 inmates charge forward, their armed leader running at the front. A purple-charged weapon slams down, shaking the ground. Then a masked fighter unleashes purple energy while gripping a spear. 3 inmates in uniform hurry down the corridor, their eyes darting nervously toward an unseen threat ahead. The masked leader warns escape is impossible, with monsters and soldiers blocking every route. Meanwhile, a newcomer steps forward gripping a staff as energy rises. An armored scout spots an unexpected threat through binoculars, startling his comrades. Artillery and armored vehicles bombard the area in a relentless assault. A monster savagely mauls a victim, tearing them apart. Amid swirling dust, 2 adversaries collide on the battlefield as unseen eyes watch through binoculars. Soon an observer reports monsters have breached their defenses and now surround them. Terrified prisoners rush forward, trying to escape the approaching threat. However, a stern leader insists escape is impossible and orders everyone to fight. The masked leader rallies them, promising survival and miracles if they obey. The group freezes as something unexpected suddenly draws their attention. Finally, the masked leader hands out gear and orders everyone to protect it. People exit the stop train, form teams, and prepare to split up. On the barren ground, the strategist directs the resourceful companion to install miniature nuclear devices and connect trip wires at marked locations on the map. A gloved operator grips the buzzing radio, expecting urgent news. The masked leader frantically radios for support as monsters surround his squad. Terrified survivors sprint through the forest, while monsters close in behind. Elsewhere, the strategist calmly orders teams to reposition and prepare coordinated attacks. 2 prisoners in orange sprint with a radio, chased by pursuing monsters. The fleeing group bursts into a clearing, bracing for whatever awaits. They stop at the riverbank, ready to confront whatever is ahead. Suddenly, red-eyed creatures appear across the river, confronting the waiting group. 2 prisoners in orange scan the forest, unsure if monsters are nearby. In response, several prisoners fling grenades into the water to fight back. A lone survivor is hurled from an explosion, narrowly avoiding the blast. Then a towering skeletal beast bursts from the flames and attacks. A skeletal figure steps through the smoke toward the lake's edge as embers drift in the air. The roaring monster bellows loudly, shaking the battlefield. Over the radio, the masked leader orders remote mines detonated in 4 seconds. A violent explosion engulfs the area in flames. The commanding figure relays precise movement and guard orders through the radio, coordinating multiple groups for a tactical advance. 2 opposing forces face each other on a barren hillside, ready to fight. 2 enemy forces converge, trapping the outnumbered group between them. On the cliff, the group panics, wondering how their meeting spot was exposed. The pair dashes forward, believing following their leader is their only survival. A group atop the cliff unleashes a barrage of grenades toward their target below. Amid explosions, a dark attacker charges in and slaughters the surrounding monsters. Nearby, 2 allies raise their fists, celebrating victory. After the mission, the survivors regrouped on the mountaintop in scattered clusters. According to plan, a masked fighter releases electricity, detonating the miniature nukes around the hot spring. The detonations rupture the volcano's surface, releasing a sudden torrent of water. Then rocks and trees cascade downhill in a crushing avalanche. The flood engulfs nearby monsters, dragging their bodies into the expanding avalanche. As the blockade falls, armed troops advance on captives at the water's edge. At headquarters, commanders hear that Redemption Camp convicts stalled the main monster force in the northwest. Nevertheless, the chief's aid is praised, while commanders hide being outperformed by convicts. Later, the prisoners disembark with their escort, expecting reduced sentences for defeating monsters. Instead, most prisoners are locked up again, and 3 are reassigned elsewhere. Outraged by televised reports, inmates smash the television with thrown furniture. In response, guards gun down the rioting inmates, crushing the revolt. The scene shifts to a sprawling, modern residence by the river, establishing the location of the army camp's command center. 2 men sit across from each other, discussing the recent unrest in the prison. The suited official demands an explanation for the recent slaughter. The officer warns that returning troublemakers is dangerous and defends his actions. The officer decides to place someone under surveillance to monitor the newcomers from other army camps. The official insists his past decisions were sound and won't be repeated. A military officer urgently discusses the newly arrived special weapons amid the tense atmosphere on the front lines. The planner confirms the weapons already reached the front as planned. Nearby, armed soldiers crouch behind sandbags, ready for battle. Behind a barricade, 3 armored defenders brace as a distant explosion sounds. 3 monsters with glowing eyes surge forward to attack. 3 armed soldiers advance cautiously, scanning for threats. The commander urgently signals the troops to fall back to the second defensive line. 2 defenders argue over retreating while monsters approach the barricade. Then a towering enemy confronts the soldiers, driving them to retreat. A unit of masked giants marches with scientists, revealing a new weapon. A towering creature steps from the shadows, its red eyes glowing. Receiving confirmation from the scientist, the monstrous experiment prepares to launch its attack. A squad of red-visored troops storms forward, shouting orders. A masked enforcer gathers power, ready to deliver a crushing blow. Nearby, a determined subject clenches a fist as injection begins. Several glowing red vials are revealed, secured for upcoming use. An armored giant writhes as unstable energy surges inside. Suddenly, a massive heart beats at the core, its tendrils twitching. An armored fighter steps through the smoke, advancing menacingly. His visor activates, washing everything in red light. 3 masked attackers rush forward with blades, starting a frenzied assault. Meanwhile, masked fighters charge in as new monsters emerge from the dust. 2 researchers discuss the dangerous drug experiments empowering the special military unit. The armored warrior cuts down the monsters, swiftly clearing the battlefield. 2 stunned soldiers stand frozen, unable to grasp the power displayed. Elsewhere, a lone fighter rips through the horde, severing monsters effortlessly. The armored figure mocks the weak monsters, showing complete indifference. A masked warrior lunges in, swinging a massive sword at the armored enemy. Suddenly, a beastly horde ambushes and overwhelms the uniformed squad. A tactical officer begs a scientist to stop a squad charging into the monster swarm. However, the scientist insists rushing into the monster sea is the only path to power. He explains that everyone's power is being heavily restricted in this area. 2 people stand under the open sky, preparing for a tense discussion. A pack of monsters confronts a massive horned brute, both sides ready to clash. A hooded being reveals a grotesque grin with long tongue and sharp teeth. Finally, a monster clutches its chest as crushing purple energy surrounds it. 2 opponents face off, gauging each other's power. The monster reveals full power, preparing to attack. The towering figure urgently demands the second injection, gripping his arm as tension surges. The attacker slams a clenched fist into the opponent's chest with brutal force. The attacker slams a forceful punch into the opponent's torso, sending shockwaves through the scene. A determined ally punches a stone wall, cracking it. Nearby, several red vials shatter violently on the rocks. The transformed being releases a surge of dark power. A hulking mutant charges forward, red vials pulsing along its spine. A fighter's monstrous hand crackles with energy, signaling transformation. 4 formidable dragon heads surge forward, their eyes blazing and jaws wide in a show of overwhelming threat. A monstrous claw crushes the snarling beast's head with overwhelming force. An attacker lands a brutal punch, spraying blood. Then, the monster releases dark energy and begins rampaging. The monstrous figure staggers as a brutal, blood-soaked strike crashes into its body. The relentless fighter unleashes a powerful sword strike, cutting down the monstrous beast in a spray of blood and energy. Monstrous attackers and desperate defenders collide amid a frenzy of violence. Warriors hack through monsters, leaving the ground littered with corpses. A shocked survivor reports that the monsters have retreated. 2 researchers observe that their experiment is nearly successful as a small group repels a massive horde of monsters. A bespectacled man explains surgery and drugs grant power. After the battle, slain monsters lie scattered on the ground. A squad of masked invaders marches, dragging a monster's severed head. The severed monster head slams into the ground, splattering blood. Several observers debate keeping the restrained creature for its potential. The wounded warrior insists on moving to the next defense line. The examiner approaches, ordering the battered fighter to undergo a checkup first. The man in the white coat abruptly turns, alerted by something unexpected nearby. The bespectacled researcher recoils, shocked by what has appeared. A colossal figure appears, freezing nearby soldiers and scientists in place. Then a huge beast steps out, red eyes glowing as it reaches. A massive abomination bursts into the room, driving the scientist backward. Meanwhile, the masked warrior dashes forward to attack the monsters. The bruised combatant crashes into the ground, scattering debris everywhere. Above, the masked attacker dives downward, sword raised to strike. The attacker swings a glowing blade, unleashing a powerful strike. The masked fighter jerks back, eyes flaring with sudden alarm. He then hoists a giant blade, preparing another heavy blow. An anxious analyst realizes the approaching creatures outrank their previous estimates. The bespectacled observer reels in alarm at this new turn. The desperate survivor confronts an ally, demanding immediate medication despite the risk of being discovered by watching enemies. Then the armored survivor charges ahead to attack the blocking monsters. The armored fighter punches down, releasing a powerful energy blast. Glowing red vials are injected directly into the shadow. The masked figure staggers back, overwhelmed by sudden pain. Soon, a towering beast appears, looming over everything below. The monster roars loudly, its red eyes blazing. A scientist recoils, shouting in panic at the sight. The monstrous figure reels as a deadly strike pierces its chest, unleashing a tormented scream. Nearby soldiers recoil, stunned by the monster's sudden transformation. A monstrous claw bursts from the shadows, signaling imminent danger. A monstrous hand seizes a mass of dark fur with a threatening grip. The enraged attacker lunges forward, unleashing a deadly blow at the adversary. A towering brute stands menacingly atop a colossal black hand. Later, the towering beast stands motionless, its eyes glowing red. A shadowy entity grabs its wounded foe and tightens its grip. A colossal shadowy hand emerges from the darkness, stretching threateningly toward the world below. The massive shadowy fist slams forward in a devastating attack. A monstrous figure bursts onto the scene, radiating menace and aggression. The monster takes a brutal hit, blood spraying everywhere. The blood-stained researcher recoils after seeing the massacre. The wounded scientist realizes their torment was intentionally caused. Meanwhile, a hulking monster towers over the ruins, paralyzing survivors. A uniformed officer receives radio reports of numerous high-level monsters. A hand grips the walkie-talkie as a tense transmission crackles through the air. The commanding officer storms out, abandoning the podium mid-briefing. On the balcony, a soldier tenses after spotting danger. Meanwhile, at the forest edge, a lone infiltrator studies the fortified city. A suited official frowns over rising disasters as a uniformed visitor arrives. The officer concludes the crisis is connected to the masked entity. He quickly regrets mentioning mask in front of an enemy sympathizer. However, the suited negotiator asks if the masked combatant will be the sole scapegoat. They review the current number of elite professionals stationed at army camps. The officer outlines using elites and expendable troops to stall the monster assault. The observer explains he will only monitor the conflict, not fight. The uniformed officer stands rigidly as the wary figure seated opposite prepares to respond. Later, they consider sending expendable troops and nuclear strikes against the invading monsters. The strategist insists limited sacrifices and successful nukes could remove the need for elites. Thus, the uneasy official now finds authorizing nuclear strikes easier with Federation support. One man gives urgent instructions while the other listens attentively in the hallway. A frantic figure in tactical gear sprints forward, urgently commanding others to climb the city wall and prepare for battle. Nearby, 3 armed agents investigate a disturbance, one wielding a purple spear. A masked fighter jolts up, sensing an unseen threat. A line of colossal shadow beasts advances ominously across the barren ground. A hooded man braces himself, preparing to face the enemy. The masked fighter tenses, sensing the overwhelming presence of the monster god. A giant monster emerges from darkness and releases a sky-shaking roar. A monstrous figure with blazing eyes hurtles downward in a sudden, violent assault. The beast lunges forward, jaws wide in a killing strike. A shadowy creature recoils as blood sprays from its wounded arm. A devastating strike hits, sending shockwaves ripping across the battlefield. A hulking monster powers up, raising a fist as red eyes burn. The shadowed attacker slams into the ground, blasting out a shockwave. A new shadowy figure plummets down while the armed group staggers back. 2 terrified soldiers sprint away, fleeing the threat behind them. A giant crater rips open in the earth, as several figures plummet helplessly toward its shadowy depths. Dark projectiles streak across the sky, marking the assault's beginning. The ground erupts as an overwhelming force crashes down, sending shockwaves through the area. A colossal shadow beast towers over the ruined ground below. Finally, a monstrous shadow giant appears under the storm, red eyes glowing. A monster appears in the storm, its glowing eyes threatening. A towering figure hurls a smaller form high into the air with overwhelming force. An eruption flings rocks upward, shaking the battlefield. The swordsman steadies himself, ready to face the oncoming threat. Then a single red eye appears, marking the monster's arrival. The young fighter tightens his twin swords, expecting another attack. He faces the towering shadow beast, bracing for its charge. Suddenly a huge black hand smashes down, splattering blood. A monster bursts from the cliff, blasting rocks and dust. A crushing blow hits, shattering the ground and hurling debris. 3 beasts charge together, beginning the main battle. A monstrous creature lunges at a soldier, while chaos erupts among others fighting giant beasts nearby. The monstrous beast surges forward, jaws agape and fangs gleaming with lethal intent. The fighter smashes his charged weapon into the giant wolf. The cautious ally grips her crackling spear and urgently asks her companion about their strategy as he battles the monstrous beast. A negotiator buys 1 hour while defenders ready for advancing monsters. Back to back, the pair braces themselves as monsters close in from all sides. The swordsman steps forward, resolved to face the monster. A masked fighter blasts dark energy from his trident, escalating the clash. Finally, purple lightning explodes outward, engulfing the battlefield. Purple energy strikes the horned armored enemy with overwhelming force. Then the masked fighter drives his spear down, sending a shockwave forward. A lone fighter braces on a ledge as red-eyed fiends climb. Meanwhile, the youth studies the mask, thinking about his controlling father. Wearing armor and the mask, he explains its power suppressed deadly lightning. A white-haired host struggles inside dark energy, obsessed with unresolved betrayal. The long-haired warrior grips his trident and approaches the portal to hell. Soon, the figure steps forward, releasing purple energy from beneath his foot. He hovers in midair, charged with purple power, aiming his spear. Crackling with energy, he smirks and flatly refuses to surrender. However, the stubborn fighter falls while crackling with power, still refusing defeat. Purple lightning crashes down, violently scattering the surrounding crowd. Then a massive purple wave rips across the field, flinging everything aside. The fighter spins out a powerful attack as a gigantic red-eyed shadow looms. Then the attacker dives from the sky, wreathed in purple energy, to strike. The youth rushes forward and slashes the looming shadowy hand. The startled woman staggers back as a burst of blue energy erupts before her. A crushing blow hits the monster, throwing debris and dust everywhere. The young woman is smashed to the ground, shocked and in pain. A massive force strikes the ground, blasting debris outward. The fighter hurls his opponent away with overwhelming force. The young man shields his companion as they slam into the earth, sending debris flying from the impact. Meanwhile, he carries the unconscious girl from the collapsing cave. The leader kneels beside his ally, briefly reassuring him. Afterward, a masked fighter scans the darkness for threats. Amid the corpses, an ally warns he can't face an 8th-rank monster. A figure punches into the dark vortex to forcibly correct something. The swordsman stands over the portal, refusing to yield. Suddenly, corrupted energy tears through the area, warping everything. Bathed in swirling darkness, the lone figure unleashes a surge of ominous energy. A lone figure stomps down, sending dark energy through the ground. An armored being unleashes dark energy, overwhelming the surroundings. Then the armored warrior advances as the decisive battle starts. The armored fighter releases menacing energy while drawing his sword. The injured youth confronts a towering demon amid scattered debris. The anxious figure on the ground calls out desperately while surrounded by debris. A monstrous attacker lunges forward, its clawed hands smashing downward. A blast of energy slams down while the white-haired foe braces. A gigantic hand smashes the wounded youth, flinging him away. Finally, the armored challenger charges as the monster's hand fights its glowing restraints. The armored warrior charges through the storm toward danger. Meanwhile, a lone fighter confronts the towering beast with a cursed blade. The attacker unleashes dark energy, cleaving the sky with one slash. A devastating crimson energy slash collides with the enormous dark sphere. Then, a giant shadow beast appears, raising its blazing red hand. A ferocious strike cuts the monster open, spilling blood and energy. A massive limb slams down, hurling blood across the battlefield. A nearby fighter suddenly explodes in blood and crackling energy. A roaring wave of blood-red energy erupts, consuming everything ahead. The armored warrior releases more sinister red energy into the sky. Afterward, 2 armored survivors stare at the beast's severed head. 2 suited men discuss witnessing a human transform into a humanoid monster. The bespectacled researcher plans to capture this enhanced subject for experiments. By radio, a subordinate reports 35 nukes launched at the wall monster. The 2 officials tensely watch the distant threat approaching the city. Soon, fiery projectiles rain down, spreading destruction across the battlefield. 3 armored warriors realize they've been sacrificed to lure monsters, with no escape. Elsewhere, a calm figure polishes glasses, vowing every sacrifice will matter. The suited leader tells the crowd humanity and the Federation will remember this. Another barrage of fiery projectiles falls, engulfing the entire area in chaos. A blazing arc of energy rips through the sky with overwhelming force. Then a colossal eye appears overhead, blasting dark energy. A fighter crushes a medallion in their gloved hand. A young onlooker recoils, sensing the overwhelming presence. He realizes the demon god has breached space to reach Earth. A dimensional barrier glows as monsters slip through, letting humans study invasion rules. Gigantic threats effortlessly slip past established defenses, undeterred. A dire warning spreads that the demon god's threat is rising. Underwater, a huge creature thrashes within a glowing net. A speaker says most leaders join the peace faction, isolating the masked war faction. His insistence on eradicating the demon god cost official support and power. A relentless storm of blazing projectiles rains down from the sky. Amid the storm, a glowing eye-shaped artifact appears, radiating power. Soon, fiery projectiles rip through smoke, marking the assault's beginning. Glowing shots are intercepted midair by swirling dark energy spheres. A colossal enchanted eye looms overhead, unleashing a barrage of fiery projectiles as those below brace for impact. A suited official reels as he learns every nuclear bomb vanished. An officer is overwhelmed by power through the radio while another escapes. One man urgently explains the catastrophic situation as the other prepares to leave for Star City to report the crisis. Finally, he realizes someone is about to escape and recoils. The man in command strides down the hallway, firmly asserting his authority and urgency to deliver a report. A determined fighter grips his staff, ready to fight. The explorer recoils after discovering a glowing spear in the cave. Armored soldiers collapse, paralyzed by terror under the dark sky. A horde of monsters charges, quickly overrunning the battlefield. Then a towering monster appears, radiating lethal intent. A giant claw slams down, beginning the devastating assault. A massive beast is cleaved open by a single slash. A huge black hand grabs the armored demon, stopping its escape. The towering beast staggers as a crushing blow lands. Dark energy slams into the ground, erupting in a violent explosion. Afterward, the monster lies pinned against shattered rock, badly wounded. An armored warrior rises, crackling with surging dark power. A colossal eye wreathed in purple energy rips open in the sky, signaling the arrival of something unknown. The fallen man convulses as spiked armor forces a monstrous transformation. The masked being releases dark energy, fully revealing his new form. Again, a huge glowing purple eye opens overhead, intensifying the menace. A mystical eye appears in the sky, pulsing with dark power. The lone man exposes half his face behind a jagged mask. Meanwhile, a watcher tenses, realizing the enemy now targets her companion. The silver-haired mage wonders why such a powerful being targets one human. The startled figure pieces together a critical clue, her shock evident as sweat beads on her brow. A glowing symbol appears in the sky, signaling looming danger. Determined, he raises the glowing mask to release its power. Suddenly, a dark portal tears open overhead, spilling purple energy. The spearman grips his weapon and declares the enemy is afraid. A lone purple feather materializes, pulsing with strange energy. Soon, a dark energy vortex forms in the sky, glowing purple. The vortex expands across the sky, erasing everything it touches. Two huge shadowy beings emerge from the swirling dust. A giant stone monster shatters, scattering rubble through the dust. A herd of beasts charges across the plain, shaking the ground. A tired warrior surveys the field and confirms the enemy has withdrawn. The soldiers cheer as news spreads that the enemy has retreated. The group celebrates on the cliff, grateful simply to be alive. An armored watcher glares at the trembling foe with clear contempt. A lone figure steps into the void, driving a hidden monster back into the rocks. After discarding an old identity and power, a hidden foe finally attacks. Menacing armor and mask amplify his presence, forcing his enemy to flee. Clad in dark armor and clutching a spear, the lone figure assesses the overwhelming power gap between himself and his unseen adversary. A quest completion screen announces that the main objective has been achieved, revealing a new transformation and the requirement for rare resources. The resolute figure unleashes a surge of sinister energy, as darkness coils aggressively around him. He trembles as monstrous power threatens to consume his will. With suspicion burning in his eyes, the young man demands an explanation from the figure before him. Across the wasteland, the armored fighter and opponents brace for battle. A furious man accuses the stoic newcomer of being a monster's pawn, while an ally adamantly insists on his humanity. The suited man blames the suspect for every recent monster disaster. A stern official confronts the calm suited man before the watching crowd. Meanwhile, a loyal ally argues their monster fight proves the accused innocence. The enraged executive yells at him for defending a monster. The commander accuses the group of aiding demons in the monster attack. Soon, the uniformed leader orders armed escorts to arrest everyone present. Two allies stand back to back as four armed enemies surround them. The damaged armored warrior erupts, releasing a shockwave of raw energy. He slashes upward with overwhelming force, scattering the airborne monsters. The stern officer charges in, fist glowing for a powerful blow. A determined brawler rushes in with a blazing fist as the armored foe guards. Shaken, he realizes his opponent is still overwhelmingly strong after the last fight. An armored creature grabs the bespectacled man while green energy crackles around them. Finally, a monstrous green hand clamps onto the struggling fighter's glowing arm. An armored beast impales a suited man with its blade. A battered blade swings down in a powerful strike. The armored monster pierces the attacker's torso with its bladed arm. Fresh blood splatters violently across the floor, marking the aftermath of a brutal confrontation. The wounded man collapses as a weapon pierces his chest. The lone figure stands firm as a demonic mask forms over his face and dark energy surges around him. The armored fighter stands over a defeated foe as an onlooker freezes. The commanding officer urgently orders the hesitant soldiers to advance. Suddenly, a frightened soldier is surrounded by dark, glowing birds. The towering enemy blasts red energy, driving the opponent back. The terrified officer recoils as the monstrous figure advances menacingly. Then a young man's face twists as his eye glows red. The armored warrior releases corrupting energy that overwhelms the cowering foe. The masked attacker charges and unleashes a dark, bloody slash. Blood stains the jagged earth, marking the aftermath of brutal conflict. The armored figure stands over the bloody ground as an onlooker recoils. Next, a lone fighter punches the ground, sending out shockwaves. A black armored subordinate kneels and reports his late arrival. The man explains he recognized the other's identity from heightened senses. Finally, a shocked onlooker recalls that the masked figure's return. A wounded follower vows forces will retake Star City. He braces as an armored attacker closes in. A suited man startles at an unexpected disturbance. An armored fighter transforms, unleashing dark energy through his sword. A suited attacker fires a dark beam that devastates the ground. A speaker on stage announces that the Federation has secured an unprecedented victory in the ongoing human-monster conflict. He proclaims Camp A1's triumph, killing millions of demons and elites. A somber figure at the podium acknowledges the Federation's sacrifices and accuses a group of traitors of causing devastating losses on the front lines. The speaker condemns humans who join monsters against humanity. Soon, the crowd panics, fearing a disguised enemy among them. The leader shouts a command, instantly silencing the crowd. The speaker declares traitors and monster spies are hiding among survivors. The official vows to hunt traitors while promising no wrongful charges. With a raised fist, he vows no criminal will escape. The reporter urgently points, instructing the cameraman to film a developing scene in the bustling city crowd. The news crew turns abruptly as a sudden commotion breaks out nearby. A lone figure stands alert on the rooftop, caught in the crosshairs of an unseen threat. A swordsman waits on the ledge, prepared to fight. Terrified, the young man flees with others from the sudden attack. Masked attackers charge the cloaked outcast with drawn blades. A masked attacker lunges with a sword, surprising him. The lone figure steels himself, ready to face the imminent threat head-on. The fighter releases an energy slash, hurling the enemy back. Soon after, he braces as multiple armed attackers rush him. He smashes through several foes, flinging one violently away. Two masked fighters tense up, sensing an overwhelming power surge. Afterward, the lone warrior stands unhurt, while wounded enemies collapse around him. He stands over a defeated foe as the crowd stares. A menacing figure of red energy confronts the terrified crowd. The lone swordsman stands defiantly at the path's end, facing two hostile crowds as a blonde observer watches from behind. Suddenly, he freezes, recognizing the ominous silhouette approaching. He realizes his former ally is the one he betrayed. The pensive youth lowers his gaze, silently questioning if his feelings are reciprocated. He collapses in defeat, feeling completely outmatched by his opponent. A celebrated leader stands before a cheering crowd of supporters. The young man clenches his fist and leans forward, determined to finally prove himself in front of everyone. With fierce resolve, the challenger recognizes an opportunity to claim victory. Someone considers using a new drug to transform into a monster. The protagonist clenches his fist and resolves to gain power equal to his rival. A dark-haired fighter looms over his blonde opponent in standoff. The desperate figure urgently commands the other to act without delay. A suited man braces as a towering enemy approaches. A desperate figure grips a cylindrical device and urgently commands immediate action as time runs out. Both men brace themselves back to back, one tightening his hold on a sword while the other readies a small object, signaling an imminent clash. The man in tactical gear stands before the microphone, ready to address the assembled crowd. A suited figure drops to his knees in defeat. The kneeling figure bows in submission while the authoritative man behind the podium watches in silence. The stoic figure steps forward and calmly unveils a new identity to those watching. The crowd recoils, realizing the infamous criminal is actually a monster. Meanwhile, a tense crowd gathers as their long-haired leader appears on screen. A shocked observer looks up, questioning the strange sight. The resolute figure asserts that only his presence is truly necessary, dismissing the need for heroes. From above, the lone leader claims only he can save them. The protagonist fixes an unwavering stare forward and delivers a firm declaration. A tall onlooker doubts the usually silent masked man's bold speech. The outcast accuses the nervous crowd of exiling him for his power. Kneeling, the beaten man admits pride caused his downfall. He vows to seize their resources and grow stronger, warning the world. A dominant figure stands at a podium, declaring control over the world as a massive crowd watches his image on a giant screen. The student realizes the quiet one has been hiding a powerful secret all along. The quiet man finally cries, his composure collapsing. Soon, the crowd erupts in cheers, fists raised for him. The assembly kneels, bowing and chanting praises to their masked leader. Meanwhile, the lone warrior stands firm, taunting the hidden enemy.